All right. That was just bad timing on my part. I'm bad at math. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome. Welcome. Are we good? Is this all, are you all figured out on your end? My computer being a jerk today. How y'all doing? Yeah, math, not great at it. Never really been that good at it. It's kind of funny when in engineering wasn't great at math. What's up, folks? Metagen, how you doing? Good day to you. Brian, how you doing? Hope your evening day is going well. Still in Turkey, right? I am in Turkey. Bright Turkey right outside the door, or the window, whatever it is. It's all out there. Very Turkish. Turkish air, Turkish water. Good to see you all, though. Dylan, how you doing? 07. Look at all the 07s. I feel 07'd up today. Shifty, good to see you. Cotton, welcome. Whimsical, hello. Gamers Cafe, you need another fix? We're all junkies up in here. We're all looking for the latest fix, the newest news. Soon, TM, yes. It's what we need in our blood. Welcome, everybody. Atreides, hello. Production, NB Production. Oh, something just banged. Hello, welcome. Punji with the toes gang. Math is an a-hole and physics is his little brother. Physics is annoying, but I like physics a lot more than math. The punch is here. The punch. I loved physics much more than math. You know, cantilevered beams and all that jazz. Same for an engineer, pretty bad at math. Yeah, that's how it goes. Don't trust us. Don't take our word for it. Good morning, operator. How you doing? You need you a Crusader Spirit. It's a nice looking ship. We're going to talk about that probably on Wednesday, though. But we are going to talk about that. Okay, that was an oof moment. Hello. We are, we should be back. Hey guys, are we back? Okay, we're good. Somebody nuked my internet, I guess. Just everything went offline. Phone, computers, all things. But we're back. Thank you all the people who stuck around and waited, because I'm a fool. And I can't keep a constant internet connection, even though my livelihood depends on it. Welcome back to Space Tomato episode 2. Short interruption to the usual programming, but we're in. An EMP. We got hit. I don't know, maybe it was some Black Sea warfare. Either way, we're back and we're good to go. Thank you again to everybody who stuck around, waited for me to get that all figured out. Today, we're starting our CitizenCon review. I know plenty of you were here for CitizenCon with me. We watched it live. It was a lot of fun. It's still up on the channel if you want to see that. But that was basically me watching things and you watching me watch things while you also watched things. And really, we didn't get to talk too much about what was going on. So today we're going to go through it detail by detail and actually look at some of the things that they're showing, talk about where they came from, the monthly reports we might have seen them in, and what they're going to mean for the game. The first one we're going to start with is Planet Tech. After that, we'll talk about the investigation missions, at which point I will probably head off and get some food, to be honest. But then we will start them back up again on Wednesday and keep going through the panels and just talking it up, because there's a lot of interesting stuff to go over. I would say when I was first watching CitizenCon live, I wasn't the most impressed. I generally kept a neutral tone, I think. But now I've had some time to sleep on the thoughts, to reconsider what we saw and put it into context, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling hyped. Not too hyped, not overhyped, but enough, a healthy amount, a good dose. It's got my it's got the liver swollen with joy. Is that a thing? Do livers swell when you get happy? I'm just trying to pull back up chat because it's currently I can't see both chats at the same time. Stand by. Stand by, brethren. How have you all been feeling though about CitizenCon? Now it's been a couple days gone. Have any time to rewatch some of the panels or anything like that? Seriously, Restream, where'd your chat thing go? Good. Jeezy Pates. All right. Give me a cool minute. I gotta close this down the old-fashioned way. Gotta find it in my tasks. Come on, know you're in here somewhere. Where the heck? This is a nuisance. Open for me, come on. Somewhere. There it is. Thank you. All right. So I've got chat open now so I can see what you're saying. CitCon was exactly what they said it would be this year. It was. It was. Although I have issue with the naming convention. I think the fact that they named all of the panels Journey to 4.0 makes you think that all of this stuff is coming with 4.0, and I don't know about that. Oh, Reese, dude, what's up? Swollen liver probably means you're gonna die soon, bro. Well, I'm gonna die from hype then. What's the problem? Can I get an amen? Bro, I'm sitting in the corner of my room, rocking back and forward, saying 364 more days to go until next CitizenCon. You better hope that at least some of the stuff we saw is gonna be there by then. I think it will. If you die, we will be sad. I won't die. Don't worry, guys. I'm here with you. We're gonna make it to the launch. We're gonna make it to the game going live. All right? I got you. You're still honestly on edge about the idea of skill systems coming to SC. Not something you want part of SC. Need clarification vid ASAP. Yeah. So that's actually something I talked about on the podcast today. Now, this newest podcast, the first episode's out. First part is out, but the conversation was so long and in depth that I decided to split it into two. So part 2 will be coming out probably a few hours after this stream. But in that one, I have a pretty lengthy conversation with morphologists about my own thoughts on that. But I am probably going to do a video on that sort of segment as well, because I think, yeah, skills are weird to be coming to Star Citizen. But that's not the conversation for today. Let's not get into that, because that will hijack us for hours, I'm sure. Today, we're talking about planets and missions. I am young. I'm a youngin'. A real whippity snappity young. Although I'm starting to not feel so much, getting random pains in my knees and my back. The years of competitive sports are starting to catch up. I think they've been catching up for a while though. Let's see. You're always excited when they release and show new content, but wary of the roadblocks on the road to Pyro. We've got some roadblocks to pass up. That's for sure. It's gonna be a journey, a legitimate journey to Pyro. But I look forward to it, you know, because I think they've got a lot of really interesting stuff to show us between now and Pyro coming out that we haven't seen at CitizenCon. There's no saying for sure if they'll actually show us or if they'll wait until after 4.0 and they can start talking more about it, but things like hacking are, you know, nowhere to be seen, but we know are well underway. Things like the fire hazards and stuff like that are other little background things that I think we could see more of in that time too. Good morning, North Carolina. North or South Carolina? I hope you're having a good day too, Polite. Thank you. Loved your coverage. I jumped around a bit and you were the only one that totally not stepping all over the audio. Yeah, it's hard to figure out how to cover those things, but I wanted to try and not talk over people too much. Wait till I hit 40. If my knee makes it that long. Once you turn 30, it's all downhill. Don't tell me that! I'm only 2 months away! I turned 30 in December. I feel like I'm already there. I can't believe I'm freaking 30. I keep thinking about my graduation, and I'm like, wait a second. That's not college graduation. I'm thinking that's freaking high school graduation. Oh my gosh. That's so long ago. It's weird. To be honest, you loved CitizenCon, thought it was excellent. Great to hear from CR and loved what you saw. Maybe you should have called it Road to 4.x. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. The fact 318 still isn't an Evo is worrying. If they are determined to get it out before IAE, it will be damn bare bones without all the testing. Yeah, me and Morphgrowth kind of agreed that it doesn't seem likely they're going to be able to hit that goal. At some point, they need to get out and say, hey, it's not going to come by IAE. That's going to be 3.17.4, and we'll get it out later. 50 is the new 30. Give me whatever you're having. 30 isn't an issue. That's your prime time in life. Trust me. I mean, you know, see it that way. I will say this. I wish we had a for sure living place by the time I was 30, but we're set on an interesting course. 5 years ago, actually, today, the Miami airport, I will say, acted in ways they should not have when my wife landed in the US, and made poor decisions that derailed our entire lives. It's why I'm in Turkey. It's why we've been in Turkey, and it's been affecting us for the last 5 years of our life. So this is a kind of a pretty big day for us, actually. Is it today? Yeah, today is a pretty big day for us because that was just a very monumental moment in our lives, and it set us on a very long course that we're still going on. But boom, bitch, we come back, we succeed. You reside in SC because you're a star citizen. Yeah. You wonder if all the PES will be in 318 or just like part of it. Yeah, I think it's just, we're going to be missing out on some of the supporting features of PES at that time. Anybody who has played Escape from Tarkov is shivering when hearing of the skill system. I've heard comparisons. When is IAE? That's going to be towards the end of November, kind of mid-November. I can say illegally removed you. Yes, that's what they did. They illegally removed her, and gave her a 5-year ban from our country. They just, for no other reason other than they basically misread something, and they didn't misread, but misappropriated something and assumed that they basically they accused that her visa was done when she was still going for school, and instead of letting her call the school, clear things up, and get things figured out, they gave her a 5-year ban, didn't let me see her, didn't let me talk to her, and then didn't let her come back to the country for 5 years. We beat that because it was illegal and it was wrong, and we were able to get it overturned within a couple of years of that decision, but obviously it changed our lives for good. So today is the day that would have ended, and it's a very, very big day for us. Life is a journey. It is. Things happen. They do. But it's not over yet. Anyways, guys, why don't we talk a little bit about this Planet Tech, huh? Let's see what they've got for us. So today we're introducing the first set of planets. I say first set, there's like 6 planets. We're getting to see 5 of them, so it's not really a first set. It's basically most of them, as well as one of the moons, one of 6 in the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at each one, kind of talk about some of the features that they're showing us, make some commentary, and then you guys can say which one is the best. Let's jump into it. Jedi, just to answer that last question, the leveling system or skill system that they seem to be putting in is something that was originally planned for NPCs, and it seems like they're now kind of moving it over to players. I did think it was better for NPCs, though.
My name's Max. I'm here on behalf of the...
Let me know if the sound is too low.
I'm a senior environment artist, and I want to show you some of the cool stuff that we worked on in the last 2 years.
Ooh, sound effects.
So I have Pyro 1 open already. It's live in engine. This is like the current version of Pyro, so we're still gonna do like a polish pass on it, so not everything is done, but we still wanted to show you what we have so far. So the idea behind Pyro 1 is that it gets hit by solar flares like repeatedly. We got some concept art from the concept art.
Okay, this is the first thing that I'm kind of like already wanting some clarification, because he says that they don't have the effects that these solar flares call for. Whoa, Swizzle Daddy. Gifting out 5 subs. My friend, thank you. Yo guys, make sure to accept those subs or memberships if you see them pop up on your screen over on YouTube. Thank you, Swizzle, for getting us closer to the goal. Huge right there. Channel memberships are great because they get you direct access to our exclusive videos. So make sure to take advantage of that if you just got gifted one. Thank you so much, Swizzle Daddy, for the support. So they talk here briefly about like the solar flares, which hit the planet and cause these like glowing streaks in the planet. And he says that it's not ready, but will be. And I'm wondering, like, does that mean that it will be later down the future, like far away, or will it be ready by the time this is dropped in game?
Our team, and the way that they visualized these solar flare hits was like glowing marks and streaks all over the planet. Unfortunately, the tech for the glowing part of it is still being worked on. So we had to make do with what we could use. So it's not glowing, but you can still see a lot of the blue coming in. Yeah, as you can see, Pyro 1 already has some volumetric clouds. Not all of the Pyro planets have their volumetric clouds yet. So let's jump to one of the blue spots.
It's a lot of members.
On the planet, I just tweaked like the sun position a little bit to make it look a bit nicer. And then you can see why it's blue. We added like tons of these crystals to Pyro 1. We've used crystals before on Wala, but
I really hope these are mineable. Gosh, like when eventually we do have the commodities starting to populate by quantum, they really need to make sure that these different things, we'll see a couple rocks later on in this, they need to make sure these different things are actually mineable. Or else it's just kind of like going to be annoying to see them and never have access to them. You became a member twice? Bruh. That's pretty chill. Double member status, not bad. Your general takeaway from this year's con was too much art, not enough gameplay. I'm confident on their ability to deliver great art and environments. It's the gameplay delivery we could really do with seeing traction on. Agreed.
I think we were a bit too, we played it a bit too safe on Wala.
They double counted the memberships. It just, so you already passed us the goal. Thank you, Swizzle. Good job.
I think we only put like crystals as ground cover assets. But for Pyro 1, we really wanted to push the shapes. So you can find like these really large crystals here. Heisenberg would be really happy here.
Yeah, okay, it was when we were dating, Reese.
Another interesting thing to highlight here, plants over there. So what's interesting about those is we made them...
Also, we've seen these plants, right? These look familiar. I don't remember what from. But I feel like we've seen these somewhere.
Like 3 or 4 years ago, they were supposed to be part of like a mission in...
Prison, that's right. Yeah, thank you.
On a space station. The mission was scrapped, unfortunately. And ever since then, this asset set has just been sitting in our like vault. It's a really cool plant set, and I'm happy that we finally found a spot to use them.
We'll talk about lava.
So this is another spot I want to highlight.
All right, this is the first like really cool bit. I'm so happy to see that the Planet Tech team's finally getting the like large geological features, like not quite landmark features, but definitely the kind of thing that you can see when you're flying around in the air that looks really distant and like epic in the distance when it's coming out through the fog and stuff. Like this really starts to add some personality to the planets, and I feel like they're finally at the point with the Planet Tech where they can experiment and do this stuff. Like we were waiting so long between Hurston, all its moons, and Arcorp's moons, and Crusader's moons, and even Microtech's moons at the end, and Microtech itself. Like we kept watching them build this sort of more basic Planet Tech, which was beautiful. but it was also just like hills, canyons, small canyons, valleys, and like plains with rocks all over them. God, I hate the rocks. But now, now it's like they're finally starting to be able to be like, okay, what kind of weird stuff can we do? Let's make some weird, and almost every single planet in this system now has something that really stands out that makes you remember it. I love that. The loop rocks are landmark sized. Those are massive. They're so freaking big.
So important for us that we do add something memorable to each planet. In the case of Pyro 1, it's this spiky rock set that looks really intimidating. We try to push the scale of the assets for the Pyro system. We felt like...
The bummer is that they'll probably never be useful, right? Like they are probably not going to put in the effort to put minables in those or make them truly breakable or anything like that. So they'll just make the planet look nice, but at least there is that. They're unique looking.
Like by now we got like the basic rocks and the scattering of the basic rocks.
And who knows, maybe
to,
I'll
like,
eat
very
those
good
words.
Quality.
That's
so
what
now
she
we can
said.
Explore more
I bet she
crazy
did.
shapes, I guess. And this is one of the sets that we made. It's not done yet. It still needs a polish pass.
I thought Pyro 6 would be snowy.
What it feels like when you're in game.
I think it definitely looked like it was going to be either snowy or chalky.
Biome of Pyro 1. It's this
We need the gameplay around the cool
biome
stuff.
here,
I agree. And
which has these...
so that's why, like, the Planet Tech team's always been super impressive, right? But the teams that are now starting to pick things up, the Montreal and EU locations teams, that's what makes these more exciting, because now we're seeing that also the locations teams that are meant to fill these cool planets with interesting stuff are actually starting to do things. The derelicts that we've been seeing come in over the course of this year, the underground facilities that they've shown that they're working on again, the new updated outposts that are going to have resource management connected to them. Like, these are the locations that are also kind of starting to catch up to the Planet team. And I think it'll still be a couple more years before we really, really see them do a lot of work. But already they've introduced like 5 or 6 new unique locations in the last year. So, they're only getting bigger. They're only getting faster and better at this. And that's better news than I could have hoped for a year ago when it came to the locations teams. Imagine getting ambushed by the humongous pyro crabs here. Yo, this already looks creepy. This is eerie. Nowhere near as crazy as, I think it's Pyro 4 inside of the crater. But this is, this hits a different tone than the rest of Stanton, and I like that. I would have liked more atmosphere effects. Where is the lightning and thunder and acid rain? Or like, this is supposed to be a planet hit by solar flares. Seems a little basic for a solar flare kind of planet. And somebody else mentioned the clouds. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they decide to throw anything else in there, but I'm guessing they're a bit limited in their VFX and stuff. Maybe the VFX team hasn't gotten a hold of this stuff yet. Who knows?
Really cool looking
Hello,
rock
Portugal.
formations. They are massive.
Welcome to the stream,
scale.
Placey
Like, if I
Games.
jump in game here, you get a good feeling for
Pitch Black
the
vibes?
scale
Oh
of
my
them.
gosh.
Yeah, it's possible
I like to call them pancake rocks.
land your spaceship on them.
We're going to make a city out of pancake rocks. We're going to take our pioneers and just plant cities on top of these massive things. And they'll never break. So you could just throw an obscene amount of stuff on top of that and it will just look weird.
It's probably really fun to race through here. We can imagine that this is going to be like a nice combat space as well, because they do provide nice cover.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Let's just jump to a couple different areas on Pyro 1 before we move to Pyro 2.
Overall, this planet is probably the least boring. Okay, and that's okay. That's all right, because that's not saying much. This is a crazy system. But this is the least boring one. It looks the most, I would say, basic in terms of biomes and styles and things like that. But it still looks really nice. Like, the rocks themselves look higher quality than what we see on Hurston or Lyria or any of those moons. The scatter on the ground looks a little bit higher quality. The texturing also looks a little bit better in certain places. Overall, it's pretty cool. Very desolate. And yeah, we haven't seen Pyro 5 yet. I'm guessing that wasn't finished, or like Witchspace said, he didn't have the expertise to talk about it, but I think they're just still working on it. When did CIG decide to build out Pyro planets, making them livable? I think they made the internal decision probably 2 years ago or so, 2 or 3 years ago, when they decided that the second system would probably still be something that they'd want to have more activity in. But this is their official kind of revising of the lore. This was the first time we got to actually see every planet and what they were meant to look like, as opposed to just concept art. And we didn't even have much concept art, really just lore descriptions. So they didn't have to retcon too much in this instance, but this was their official retconning. I think internally they did it a couple of years ago. You wonder when dynamic weather, or rather how it's coming along? I'd love to hear about that. I thought we would hear about that by now. Would the new bunkers come with 4.0? I don't think so.
So now we're on
But
Pyro
maybe.
2. In comparison to Pyro 1, you can immediately see the planet is like way more colorful. There's more variation in the use.
The bodies of water still don't look very good from up high, huh? Like that's something that really stands out in this shot. Your eye starts to get drawn to the nice shapes of the biomes and the mountain ranges and the fog there, but then this water in the middle just looks, or whatever it is, just looks bad.
And values of the colors.
They showed us Pyro 6.
Browns and like
it's the white one with the
white spot,
bone-looking rock formations.
some red, and it's all contrasted by like a blue clear ocean. So Pyro 2 doesn't have volumetric clouds yet, but they will be there at release. So now I jump to...
It seems like empty planets, because these aren't actually in the game. This is basically, he's the person who made the level. He's not the person who puts everything inside of it. So he makes the planets, and then the rest of the team, the people who we're going to look at next, make the stuff that go in the planets.
One of the biomes of Pyro 2, what I want to highlight here is the improvements that we made to how acids spawn on the side of mountains. That was something that was always quite challenging for us to do.
Still waiting for proper cliffs, but these look really good. This looks better than, I don't know if you guys recognize this kind of same structure from Daymar, but it looks much smaller and more scattered on Daymar. It definitely doesn't have like this sort of built up nature to it where it looks like there's massive peaks and cliffs, which is, I think, is a pretty cool addition to this one.
To have some natural transition from the terrain to the geometry, and then also have like the rocks form in a natural way.
You like this planet without clouds?
Now we can make nicer rock formations. It's not quite there yet. There are still improvements planned for it, but I think in comparison to what we had before, this is a big step forward. Also, what you might see...
I love this part. He points out the draw distance. This is like, again, compared to our older moons and stuff, you guys notice how things sort of fade in and out as you move around on the planets. But if you look here, like all the way back here, like 4 mountain ranges back, you can still see these peaks, and they look pretty high detail. But over here where he's about to zoom into, you can see like the shapes don't change at all as you move into them. And it's going to be really nice to be able to see structures in the distance and know that's exactly where they are.
Is the drawing distance of acids has been greatly improved. So everything you see here in the distance is actual geometry. So if we were to fly all the way over there, you will see...
There was some popping right there.
Is actual geometry. So if we were to fly...
Over here on the left side, I guess that's probably because it was occluded by the hill, so it didn't really render in prior. But then he keeps going in and it kind of pops in. It's not too much, actually.
That this is, like cliff formations. And I think it looks really...
This looks like a big cliff. So I love seeing these. Look at this little outcropping here. Like these kinds of details, they couldn't even do this back when they started with Planet Tech. They were talking about how they couldn't stretch vertical surfaces to be that far because it would make everything look warped. Now they've got like little outcroppings popping up, these pillars sticking out, like super detailed cliff sides and rock faces. I love this.
Really cool, like the silhouette of the terrain.
I don't know what could be doing the draw distance. I was wondering about that because I'm like, is that because of something new that you're using? Is that because of an improvement you guys made in the materials you're using? Why is the draw distance better for them? They didn't really explain that.
Let's fly through the canyons. Yeah, I would do this in a spaceship, but I'm horrible at flying, so I'm just going to use the camera in editing.
Real weather would be good.
Now I jumped ahead to a really cool biome on Pyro 2. It's simple, but I think sometimes less is more. In this case, what sets this biome apart from the rest of the planet is that we added these calcified trees.
This looks like, honestly, this looks like a different planet. That's another thing that I'm really enjoying watching with this, is that all of the Pyro planets are kind of more intensely themed, like the moons in Stanton, but unlike the moons in Stanton, which are one biome all around, the planets change so drastically between their biomes that you forget that it's the same planet. And like, we've only had really Hurston and Microtech. We only have 2 examples of multi-biome planets. This kind of drives it home more for me. These look much more interesting than those biomes, even though really the interest comes down to the gameplay they put into it. Just from looks, these look more interesting. I like that. The worst thing about the planets was that they put plants where they shouldn't be, like the star bushes. Yeah, I think that's going to end up being just a general issue. They put plants on planets where I'm like, is there actually supposed to be something growing here? Or like, hey, why are all these dead things not crumbling into the ground? Just, there are weird things that you definitely kind of have to suspend disbelief for, or at least act like me and you don't actually know what's going on planets, because I don't. Hey Tomato, really excited for the breakdown. I watched it live and was a bit busy, so I only was half paying attention, so I've been meaning to sit down and get through the whole thing and analyze it. Samesies. Join me. That's what we're doing, my friend. This desert area looks a lot like a brighter Aberdeen. It does kind of have the Aberdeen vibes, definitely with these trees. And you notice a lot of trees that remind you of Aberdeen throughout Pyro. Maybe it says something about the air.
And they spawn.
Oh, there's no giveaway going on. I'm sorry.
Clusters. So you almost get like little forests of them. So it's supposed to look very dry and kind of dead, but still in a pretty way. Okay, if we look at it from this angle.
Supposed to look dead, but like f***ing pretty. Okay.
What I really like about this biome is the contrast that you have here on the terrain. It's pale, it's dry. But then in the background, you have like the nice, clear blue ocean. So this is one of the red areas on Pyro 2.
That's also interesting, is a lot of these planets that they have in Pyro look super dry, and then they have liquid oceans. Moist Noodle made a great comparison to the Red Dead desert side of the map. I have not played Red Dead. You think the main advancement is that they can have large chunks of geometry that are visible from further away?
It's clear,
yeah.
Blue ocean. So this is one of the red areas on Pyro 2.
All right, back to this.
Kind
Gosh,
of like,
I mean, like, look at that. I wasn't even really looking up here when we first saw this. I was looking all down here at the ground. But like, this mountain, just everything from the way that rocks are scattered across it to the way that the biome kind of spills off the side and exposes the rock below, it just looks really nice. It looks like somebody dropped a bunch of like those powdery paint shaving things over a hill and they just kind of spilled off. I love the way that this one looks. The surface looks great. I can't wait until they have better sand physics, because I would just love to see the wind blowing some sand across this, seeing the shape change, which is asking a lot. That's asking a ton. But I think it would look really cool if we got some kind of dynamic effects across this sand, because it looks so soft. I want to touch it. Why are they struggling so much with water? I don't know. I don't know. They need to get in touch with 2K. Why did they need to add the bushes and rocks, though? Would love to see a full-on desert. Desert would be cool. I think we could use a straight-up sand desert biome at some point. That would be nice.
Desert, but we try to add like a lot of different geology assets, different mixes of bushes and grasses. So it's not like a dead desert, but it feels kind of lively.
There's your answer.
And you find like, lots of foliage.
It's literally like, screw your sand. We want life.
Here we have like these cliffs in the background, which are pretty dark. And And it's another nice contrast of this planet where you have like the saturated red terrain and the dark bedrock. So jumping
towards the end, there looks like something running across the sea.
What I want to highlight is the improvements that we made to our ground textures.
Okay, I need your help. Anybody who pays a lot of attention to ISC and has been around for a while, if you consider yourself an inside Star Citizen connoisseur, I need your help. Usually I can find these things, but I am at a loss. This ground texture here was shown to us at some point. They showed us samplings of this in Inside Star Citizen sometime in the last 2 years, and I can't find the clips. I don't know if they have them in subscriber pictures, but I did see them in ISC, and I really want to find it because I want to be able to point towards this work they were doing on this a couple years ago. I think it looks great. I think it shows signs of lava in Pyro. Could be precursors to maybe some effects they might add later when they get lava working. But ultimately, the ground textures we get in this system, obviously they do look like you'd see kind of a repetitive pattern, but they look much better than in Stanton. Was it the water flow discussion? It was at some point when they were actually showing off their new ground textures that they got working for Pyro. Not the first planet review, because that one was, I remember that one was a bunch of pans, sideways pans across the surface. I think it was something more recent. Someone's been posting screens of that. Oh, in Evergreen, did somebody was able to find the stuff? Oh yeah, see, that was the first reveal. It wasn't quite that. It wasn't that one. That's the, no, none of these are it. Hold on, let me answer. So yeah, these were like focusing specifically on the ground texture. It was all you could see in the camera, and I can't find it. Griffin! Hey, dude. Head of Soul Citizens in the chat. Check him out. I'm going to give you a shout out over on Twitch, even though you're there on YouTube. Shout out to the Soul Citizen. Cheers, my friend. Thanks for dropping by.
So previously, like 2-3 years ago, we had to rely a lot on ground cover assets to add geometry and detail that the ground textures alone couldn't give us.
I also I think I'm seeing this is the same grass that we can find in other parts of the planet. I like that you can see that it's like scattered here, but then it's full on in other places.
We get like really nice shapes just from the textures alone. And then if you combine it with
it's very repetitive
ground cover assets, the result is.
But really I guess it would be
how things blend together and the amount of detail that you see
Summer
on the ground.
All right, Pyro 3. I like seeing this one because we've seen so much of it. We get to kind of compare over time.
On Pyro 3, you saw some of it during last year's keynote demo. But I want to use the opportunity to give you like an in-depth look at some of the biomes. So last year you saw that like yellow is kind of...
Okay, first thing of note, clearly the clouds are not the same. Obviously that could be because that's on the VFX or engine teams. It might just not be something that they've gotten working, or in the Planet Tech demo, it's still not functional. But if we go back to CitizenCon 2021 and look at the video of them coming into this planet. Oh, that was loud. Obviously the clouds are looking much better in this. It's very finished. I just want to put that out there. This is the caveat. This was finished up and made to look the best it can look. We're talking about a full post-production demo that they made for marketing versus what's being shown in the Planet editor. So I'm not trying to say that they're not getting to this point or that they're not there or that it doesn't exist. Just making the comparison here. And, just want to make sure that's very clear. So these clouds look incredible, right? Different shapes, different thicknesses, like the little pancake shape from the Pyro 1 rocks. Like these clouds look absolutely beautiful, and they've got the updated weather effects and all that jazz. Not saying that they're not getting there or that they won't ever get there, but this looks crazy, and I would love to get an update on how things are going with their new cloud stuff, because they just now have gotten it ported over to Gen 12. Maybe that gives them more flexibility with it.
Here is like some kind of distant thunderstrikes. And what this is, it's kind of like a prelude to, future weather features.
Think they had to scale back and just not do this? I really hope not. I hope that they would have gotten to do more testing with this before showing us if they were going to scale it back that much. At least it should be in Squadron 42, right? Either way, though, what you can see here is that there are 2 layers of clouds. That's something that we don't get yet in Stanton. So it's nice to see that they're kind of starting to get to the layering stuff, but I'd like to see more.
So from this distance, you can see through the volumetric clouds, like
what's up, Big Black?
Yellow coming through.
How you doing, dude?
Talked about what's making it look yellow, which is the moss, and I want to like jump down.
Yeah, let's check out this moss
and show you.
Show me the moss.
That you.
Show me what you've moss.
Going up close to the moss. So we're down at the surface now. I'm just gonna jump in game. A lot of time and effort was spent on making the moss look just right. So like the right level of fluffiness. And
the right moss level.
It looks really nice when it like covers these rocks. And then we also have like lots of smaller moss on the ground. We combine it with like yellow grass. And it makes for like a really interesting biome. So it was really important for us to make this biome look really dense.
Okay. Had to make sure Owen Wilson was here. Let's back up real quick. So this is, he says, the densest planet they've made, and it literally like everything is covered in foliage. It looks so good. I'd want to just jump in it. Probably wouldn't if it was real, but the way that they got it to look like it's kind of like a melted liquid that melted onto these rocks and then hardened. Looks really nice. This planet is a beauty to look at. I kind of wonder if this stuff's going to catch on fire with the new fire mechanics they've got.
Game. A lot of time and effort was spent on making the moss look just right. So like the right level of fluffiness and density. So it looks really nice when it like covers these rocks. And then we also have like lots of smaller moss on the ground. We combine it with like yellow grass.
Looks like melted cheese.
And it makes it like a really interesting
cursed cheese.
biome. So it was really important for us to.
Did I just see lightning in the background there, or was that a visual glitch?
We combine it with like yellow grass.
Why would it be lightning?
For, like, a really
Yeah, it was visual.
So we pushed the amount of acids that we're using.
Lighting it on fire was one of your first thoughts? Lord Braun, maybe we should talk about that.
Covered in foliage. Compared to Hurston, for example, which Hurston and Micro.
The clouds look great. I think they still look wonderful.
When it comes to foliage, this is way denser. The good thing is that we don't have any trees here, so all the budget we can use on ground cover, on grass. Now we jump to a pyro coast biome. The improvements we got to the
testing.
coast biomes is that we can now use.
All right, let's look at real quick, because it's so hard to be impressed by the coastal biomes. I'm sorry, they look good for what they are, but they're just not impressive to me. So let's look at sort of some of the earlier coastal stuff that they were working on and see if we can get a comparison that makes it maybe come off a little bit better. Let me just pull up some of our locational footage. See if I have anything that is coastal. Here's something about ground cover. I don't think. No, this is not it. That's not it, mate. That's Daymar. Height maps. Nix system. Planetary tech improvements. Here we go. So it looks like this is some coastal stuff. This was Q1 2021. They were looking at ways to diversify the coasts, because this coral isn't even on Hurston. Or maybe it is now, but it wasn't before. The coasts on Hurston were very bare. They were just basically, they just looked like this. That's, okay, we only get like one shot of that. See how bare it is right here? There's not really any scattering or much stuff going on. Just looks very basic. Compared to something like this. See, now this looks better to me. Just like that. All I had to do was look at another clip. You could see that like the texturing and the scattering, there's a little bit more splashes of color and stuff.
PR override for every single biome. Previously, we could only use one global override per planet, which, as you can imagine, is not enough when you have something like Stanton 4, where you have snowy regions and the spruce tree regions, and one object preset just can't cover every coast.
I agree with you there, Tesla. It'd be nice if there were coastal outposts or something.
To have some of the yellow also along the coast.
New ones look okay. Previous ones were ugly. It's still not... I still doubt this is anywhere near what they would like the coast to look like. And a lot of that probably has to do with the water. But it's better. It's more interesting for sure.
Here, we always have like a little bit of yellow.
Not expecting every area and every planet to be eye-catching.
Coming through, and eventually it transitions into the nice mossy areas. Previously, when we made coast object presets, we played it a bit safe and only used 1 or 2 asset sets. But due to the fact that we can now push the density along the coast as well, you can find different kinds of coral, seaweed, different pebbles and rocks, and other stuff. Now I jump to one of the volcanic regions on Pyro 3. You might not expect to find vegetation here, but we did add a little bit of vegetation.
Oh, they talk about volcanic regions. What do you guys think? Do you think that because we still don't know the official lore of this, right? They're showing us everything that they've got working, but they very well could be like, this planet also has some volcanoes. Do you think that if they get lava working, we'll see them retroactively come back and add some to one of these planets or moons? Because that'd be cool to see. And they did it with rivers in Stanton. Lava is the next step after rivers. In fact, we can even look it up. It's not that far off. Oh, did they take it off? Did they take lava off? Did they remove it? Get out of here. They just sneaky that stuff, huh? Where would that be? Would that be Sandbox team or Planetary Tech team? Not there. Planet Tech team. Rivers and basins, roads. There's no lava on here. That's very interesting. So they used to have rivers and basins, and that would be finishing Q1. And then shortly after that, I believe they used to have lava, and that was finishing like Q2, I think, of 2023. Let's see if I can... Star Citizen roadmap. Lava. I'm sure Odysseus posted something that has it on there. Because now I feel crazy. Now I feel like a psycho. What is this, 2020? We want something from this year, 2022. Oh, that's right. He doesn't do the progress tracker. I swear it was on here somewhere. Never going to be able to find it. Wasn't it in the card with roads? Maybe it was. Deformation and river tech to create road tooling and visuals. No. Wasn't on there. That's super surprising. I am surprised. Can I look at one more thing? Hold on. One more possibility that I might have recorded it somewhere. Let me go back to where would that be? That would be a supporters video. We're gonna find this. We're gonna do it. Members only. Rivers. All right, let's see if it's in here somewhere. River would be added to the upcoming 3.17 patch. Shh, I hate watching these. Oh! Nope, I thought that was the footage I was looking for. Why the river? No, I don't think I put it in here either. I think it's just gone for good. Unfortunate. But it was on there. We're gonna get lava at some point. You guys think they'll bring it back? Think it was a Squadron 42 thing, so not in Pyro? Might be a Squadron 42 thing. I actually don't know about that. Combine coast with underground 2.0, maybe big wave power installation or dam installation. Shoot, Big Black. You thinking big. Lava was added on May 29th of 2021 to the progress tracker. Okay, May 19th. Cool. So I'm not crazy. I'm not gaslighting myself. Or maybe it never existed. Thank you, Dutch. You make me feel better about it. Either way, I guess it's probably further off than we were thinking. Going back to that progress tracker and just looking at what they did for rivers and roads, at least the engineering is done for that stuff. Who knows when lava might be a thing. Anyways, back to the thingy.
To this region to make it a bit more interesting. What I want to highlight here is...
You doubt we're getting Pyro in 4.0 mid next year? Yeah, I'm starting to think third quarter next year, earliest. Every month it feels like it gets pushed back a quarter. Where in Pyro is supposed to be a lava zone? Well, we don't know in terms of the new lore. In terms of new lore, there might be no lava in Pyro. It's up in the air because they've retconned almost the whole system at this point. Maybe on the moons it sounds like there were some planned for lava, but again, we just don't really know because they can do anything they want with it.
The quality bar that we set for ourselves when it comes to improving the look of our vegetation. So this is one of my favorite new vegetation sets that we created. You can see the amount of detail on display. Here we have like nice little flowers and these like knots or whatever, like pots. And it's just like a really cool asset set. So when flying over the volcanic regions, you will find pockets of these scattered all around just to make the area like a little bit more lively. Before we move on, let's jump around to a couple more places.
Ah, jeez. Ah, jeez. Imagine when we have base building and there's just thousands of people hanging out in these different places. Can we smoke that? I'm sorry, you just made me breathe super heavy into the mic. Yeah, they said River Tech will be used for lava eventually. Just hope we don't have a drought until it releases. I think we'll get a 319. I think they'll do that. Probably after 3.17.4, or sorry, after 3.18, we'll probably have like 2 or 3 3.18 patches and then a 3.19. Or maybe 4 3.18 patches and then 4.0 at the end of the year. I don't know. But it does seem like maybe not so much a drought, but a drought season, a reduced flow season. Base building in about 5 years or more. Yeah, it's going to be a while before we have base building. Don't understand why they have to make everything lively. You mean like all the foliage on these planets? Hey, Zeras. So yeah, you're hoping to show off server meshing next CitizenCon. 4.0 is likely Christmas next year. Oh, I hope we're seeing server meshing stuff before CitizenCon next year. Oh man, the way that the biomes blend with the snow. On top of this, the improved sand stuff I was talking about, I hope we get new, better feeling snow at some point. God, I hate saying stuff like that because, like, come on, dude. We're getting a bunch of planets. It's a space sim. But it's so nice.
Now we're on Pyro 4, which is my personal favorite of the Pyro system. Yeah, just full disclosure, you can probably tell.
Oh yeah,
that
Pyro was
the clouds
behind.
Here are not done yet. They do look a bit busted, but yeah, they will look amazing once the planet comes out. So let's focus on the terrain shapes. We created some of these terrain shapes.
Yeah, Pyro 4 is probably the highlight of the system, I think.
Inspired by like Scottish Highlands. So there's not a lot of like verticality. Not a lot of trees, so everything.
Too many bushes for planets that get whiplashed by solar flares. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. That first planet has a little bit too much life, maybe.
So jumping in game, and then you can see the amount of ground cover assets on display, the variation in color, but it's all grounded by like the color of the soil, and it just looks like we have multiple.
Gives me Daisy vibes. This reminds me of the first shots we saw of Microtech. I wonder if I even have those still. Those are old. That was back when we were first seeing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back on YouTube for this. Hold on. We're going back. to winter of 2019 or 18, I think. How long do you think it will take for them to finish Star Citizen? Oh no, Wolf, don't ask me that. Don't ask me that. That's just going to end up with me in tears. Finish Star Citizen? Decades. Get Star Citizen to a point where it's going to be fun for the majority of people to play? With most of the systems in a believable state? 5 years for the majority of players. Now, I think that all of us who are currently sitting in this stream right now are in the top 5% of the players who will play this game. In terms of interest in this game, I think we are definitely in the very, very minority group of people who are satisfied in any way with what's going on right now. I think for this all to work, we're going to need to be able to have reputations with multiple factions in multiple systems and have those have meaningful differences in multiple missions that you can get multiple ways from multiple mission givers, and have them all coordinate in the background with virtual AI, with the quantum economy system, have cargo commodities, have real values that factor into crafting, that factor into cargo hauling, have escort missions that have multiple parts, both inside ship and out, with docking working well, with the health system working well, with you able to assign missions to other players, with AI crew being able to do things on your ships, AI blades being able to help you with targeting. Like, there's so many things that not only have to get put into the game, but then all rebalanced all over again. So I think within a few years, this game's going to be a lot of fun to play, but I don't think it's going to be any sooner than like 5 years for the majority of people to really get a kick out of this and feel like it's in a state they can just play regularly. I could be wrong about that, though. It could be 10 years. I want to try and set expectations as low as possible, you know? 2 years work on Pyro, not alone, still not finished. But see, I don't know where people get the idea of it, but I don't think that the enjoyment of this game is linked to how many star systems or planets they're putting out. I think it's linked to the gameplay that, like, we've still all been waiting for. And that's stuff that we've started to see speed up, but I think you're gonna, the progress on that stuff is less tangible than stuff like the planets. We've been going into Pyro for the last 4 years. I think people also are being very disingenuous about how that's viewed. I think they showed us a teaser of Pyro in 2019, and then they kind of tried to not bring too much attention to it in 2020, and then I think they miscalculated in 2021. But Pyro taking as much time as it has is also sort of showing that, like, every system's getting faster too. I don't think we're gonna have like 8 systems in 5 years, but I think we could have 5 by then. Yeah, at this point you're here to watch the development more than to actually play the game. Same. That's why I started my YouTube channel. When you say all that 5 years sounds too soon, it does. And that's why 5 is my minimum. I think once Squadron 42 Chapter 1 is out, things will move very quickly. I'd be hesitant. Scope creep means it will never be finished. Something new will always come up. I've got to say, the skills are scope creep. And like it seems like a very obvious case of it. I'm surprised that they just went and did that. You think it's 7 years or more before it goes to beta? It's definitely riding the coattails of Squadron, which is slowing it down quite a bit too. In your mind, they just need to make the process of getting around seamless and fun. Elite has plenty of systems and is not very fun. Yeah. 2 systems is plenty of space to see whether the gameplay is fun or not. Yeah, that's true. I think the sweet spot for this game is going to be like 3 or 4 systems. One that's super high corporate but still high in crime, one that's super high UEE and is pretty safe for everybody, but also very highly populated, one that is very lawless and gives you the chance to sort of do different types of gameplay, and then one that's kind of more resource heavy, kind of temporary, middle of the line. And I think that a good combination between those would be Nyx, Pyro, Stanton, and Terra. I think with those 4 systems, you could get a lot out of this game. Stanton took 5 years to fill out. Pyro's taken 3 to 4. Nyx, I don't know how long Nyx will take. They started working on Nyx in, we had some footage from 2021. So I guess we could probably assume that they started working on Nyx planets in 2021. Yeah, iCache messed them up. iCache messed them up. I hope the entity graph doesn't also mess them up again. You think we'll have 2 systems in 5 years, but if we have 5, I'll be very happy. 2 systems, like Stanton and Pyro, you don't think they'll add another one after that? You have a tinfoil hat on for the skills. They needed to make NPCs unique for good ones and normal ones. And while making it, they just said that the players use the system too. But they've had that plan. You can go back in their videos to CitizenCon 2020? No, that wasn't a CitizenCon. 2021, they talked about it. Did they talk about it in 2019? Can't remember if they talked about it then. Let's see. That wasn't CitizenCon. That was the next year. Star Citizen Quantum. I'm throwing some music right now. So I don't know if they talked about it way back then, but they definitely talked about it. Let's see. Mission, problems with missions, economic nodes, problems with economic nodes, probability volumes. I don't know if they talked about it here, but they had the idea laid out. They definitely mention it here, though. So at least as of CitizenCon 2021, they were definitely talking about the ideas of having skills and traits and all that stuff. Listen in.
Very high, the opposite happens. Now, the aggressive security job looks like it pays much more, and the peaceful factory worker jobs appear to pay much less. Of course, jobs have more than a single trait to distinguish themselves. Suppose we take another aggressive job.
Yeah, there's the Odin system as well.
With just one dimension, the pirate job would look just as lucrative to this quanta as the security job. We can differentiate between these 2 jobs by adding the morality trait and putting both of these aggressive jobs on the proper place on that scale. Now that all jobs have a unique combination of trait alignments, we can watch the perceived payout for all 3 of these jobs change, even though, in this case, all jobs actually pay the exact same amount. We're currently experimenting with 4 different traits, but expect to add at least a few more over time to help ensure that quanta do not congregate around the highest paying job at any given moment, and instead, just like a real population of individuals, all perform their own unique mental calculus to determine what looks most appealing to them, and in effect gives us the nice distribution of workers that we want.
So this is all based on this whole proficiencies and traits thing.
And when a quanta the concept, let's take.
I think. Hold on.
Jobs.
Here we go.
Implementation of attributes will have 2 main categories: proficiencies and traits. Proficiencies act like a multiplier on how well quanta perform a given task. Different jobs will require different proficiencies, and higher proficiencies will equate to superior execution.
It sounds almost exactly like what they were saying with the skills, right? So like they definitely had the plans for NPCs at least a year ago. It's interesting that they just kind of decided to bring it over. But anyways, back to what we were talking about with Planet Tech. Jesus. This biome on Pyro 4 reminds me a lot of these first shots we were seeing of Microtech. Kind of that same vibe.
At a biome that the art team's working on. So we're doing exploration on Microtech. So it is the coldest of planets in the Stanton system. There's, so we have a Microtech Art Corp.
Yeah, what century is he adding it in? 2900s probably. That was 2018, so about 4 years ago. Got a little better looking, huh?
So first of all, we have this.
This reminds me of
bush
DayZ
set
too.
here, which is called, I think it's called a fire stalk, which, yeah, it's kind of like a modified version of the real world thing. They add like a little bit of color to the area and make things pop. Then we have these ones here. I forgot the name of the asset set. Yeah, they also look quite saturated.
Yo, I'm looking at this freaking hillside in the background. Despite the weird artifacts that you're getting from the distance, that looks freaking sick.
The name of the asset
Giant
set,
boulders.
Yeah, they also look quite saturated and interesting. We also try to improve the quality of our tree sets. If you compare like the trees that we have on Hurston to these ones, the geometry count is way higher. The texture resolution is a bit higher, and they just look more polished and nicer, which means that eventually we have to go back to Hurston, to Microtech, and give the trees there like a little makeover. So what was really important for us was to improve the blending between different biomes. So you see here,
I don't
these
think
are
they'd
two
put
fairly
harvestables in
simple
these
biomes.
demos.
There's a clear.
I think that would take too much like mock-up for something that the Planet team isn't really done with. It'd be nice. I would have loved to see this at a time. What I think the perfect example of a Planet Tech demo for us now, because we've seen so much of just the planets themselves being made, would be to see the sandbox team, the sandbox teams, the props teams, and the Planet Tech teams all together, so they could talk about their different parts: harvestables, outposts, caves, the planet itself. But I think they're always going to limit it to whatever team is doing the talking. Missed an hour, Cotton? It's not that important, don't worry. They can knock all that out in 1 week. Place me them harvestable space tomatoes.
Distinction between them, but the transition still feels very natural. So if we go down here, you have like the red grass and it kind of feathers out.
Honestly, you barely even notice those are
but
two different
fairly
biomes.
simple biomes. There's a clear.
There's like the trees start up there, but they're kind of connected between the trees and the rocks, which is
distinction
cool.
Between them, but the transition still feels very natural. So if we go down here,
Not a huge fan of
you have, like,
harvestables.
the red
They feel
grass
out of
and it
place.
kind of feathers out.
They need
it
some
feels
work.
Very organic and natural. Let's jump to.
I think
the most
the harvestables will help with the crafting gameplay though,
this
exploration
biome here,
stuff.
The concept art team gave us some really interesting concept art,
I want to see the concept art for this.
because this is easily some of the biggest rock formations that we have in the game so far. Actually, let me try to fly a ship so you can see the scale of them. So they're massive in scale. And what was the hardest part about getting these to look right is that they're supposed to look.
I wish I could show. They showed off these rock formations a long time ago. I'm sure you guys remember. It was probably just a couple of years ago, and we saw that they were starting to get into like these really big rock structures and stuff, and it was really cool. And then they just kind of disappeared. They were gone. It was like, okay, CIG, did you give up on that? Or you're not doing that? But now they're showing up, and it's like just, oh my god,
a ship, so you can see
the amount that
scale
this changes
of
the way
them.
that the planet looks.
So they're massive.
Being able to
in
see them
scale.
off in the
And what
distance.
was the hardest part about getting these to look right is that they're supposed to look really good from a distance, because you would expect something this big, to be visible almost from space. But then the tricky thing is also to make.
Like being able to see this one over here, look how ominous that is. Oh, and then like the low-lying clouds over the top. They've got the fog down in those valleys. I swear if they remove that fog, I'm going to go buck wild. They better keep the fog on this, because the combination of like the high contrast red with the rocks and the clouds and the fog. Don't remove it, CIG, please. They could take a couple dozen of the large arches and place them in suitable location for a racetrack. Oh, I'm sure we'll have a racetrack determined on this planet in no time. There's a moment when one of them was going to say something about creatures and either CR or someone else stopped them from talking. Do you think that was an indicator of what's done? Well, I think they've been working on creatures for sure. But I don't think that really indicates that it's close or anything like that. Huntress, thank you so much for the sub. I'm sorry I missed that earlier. Appreciate you. Thanks for the support. In your opinion, the skills are really passive perks. You do something over and over and you get some animation bonus to doing it faster, quieter, etc. I've got a lot to say about it. Although the podcast will probably speak for me because me and Morph talk about it for a solid amount of time. You were talking about AI creatures. Yeah, I don't know. The AI creatures that they've been working on, the Pyro Crab, the Boreal, the what else? The Boreal Stalker, the Stormwall, and the Whip Crab, I think they called it. Definitely being worked on, have had active work, but I don't think the AI for them, the AI that actually makes them function is far enough along yet for them to be feeling like they can show them to us.
Make them look good when you're standing up close to them. Let me jump in.
Oh yeah, and
so
the cow.
You see how big these rocks actually are.
The cow.
So they are massive in scale. You can probably land your spaceship on them and walk on them, and they make you feel like really small. But I think it's a really good visual that you have these like dark gray.
I'm gonna chomp the heck out of these things with the reclaimer. I'll figure out how.
Rocks against the crimson of the soil and the grass. So here's a little happy accident where we have the volumetric clouds covering the terrain. And because the height map, the difference in height is so large, we actually get like shapes of the terrain poking out of the volumetric clouds. Yeah, you can probably spot some of the tiling issues that we have here, which is something that we still need to look at. But like I said before, this is still work in progress. So it's gonna change.
Like little handles to pick up the whole planet.
A bit. Because I mentioned biome diversity along the coasts before, I just wanted to highlight what one of the coast biomes on Pyro 4 looks like. So this one is kind of this wet sand. We scattered some of the seaweed, some of these lava plates, and some of these pebbles. And then we also get like nice seaweed moving with the waves of the ocean. One interesting thing on Pyro 4 is that we have a massive crater region. On other planets.
Holy crap, we're still on Pyro 4. There's so much going on this one. Yeah, we're reviewing some of the CitizenCon stuff and getting deeper detail on it.
Planets we have individual craters which are a whole height map, or like 3-4 smaller craters on one height map. But this is actually multiple height maps forming one large crater. And you can see it all the way out in space. Like this whole region is one big.
I'm really glad to see stuff like this. This tells me that they're not worried about doing something spectacular on a planet because the other planets will miss out or seem any worse off because of it. So makes it feel like more and more we're going to see planets with something very particular to that planet that stands out and makes it like a monumental thing to go visit. This is part of exploration gameplay. It's not a feature that they're adding, but like this is the first step to exploration stuff. Now they've made this giant landmark. They can send it to the sandbox team who can say, okay, this is an interesting location. We're going to have a different type of cave here that has a different thing going on that'll make people want to go down in there. Or this is a historic location where there's more ruins and stuff that can be found. Like, this is the first step towards creating legitimate exploration gameplay. And to see it on a planet in Pyro means that we're going to get it on many, many more planets. And that just opens up more space for the content teams to go a little crazy with it. Why didn't they show Pyro 5? I don't think it's probably not ready. Or they just don't have anything of interest to show from it because it's just going to be a ball of clouds that looks like Crusader in a different color. Macro scale features were the one thing you felt was missing when they first introduced Planetech V4. Yeah, and they're finally starting to show the different things they're willing to do after that Planetech V4. Do I think Odin will come out to the PU? Is it going to be the same as Squadron 42 or without some places? It'll be different because technically in Squadron 42, we will have like 7 years will have passed, 8 years will have passed. So yeah, I think it'll be quite a bit different.
Crater, so it's a mix of like the global displacement texture and then the height maps of the ecosystems spawning on top, plus the volumetric clouds make it look really epic here.
Towing lugs.
Now we've flown down to the surface of the crater. We wanted this to feel very, yes, spooky and grim and kind of dark. So we have these
We're gonna see such good machinimas come out of this planet.
Yeah, which look kind of creepy. Then we bring some of the red grass back from the previous biome. If we go down to the surface of the crater, you can see that we added this dark forest looking tree set, some creepy shapes, some...
I like the darker vibes that we're starting to get with some of these planets.
And this whole area
still not properly like terrifying scary, but it definitely gives you an eerie vibes.
Hostile, and it's not safe without your suit on. So far we looked at 4 of the pyro planets, so let's switch it up and look at one of the moons. This one is Pyro 5C. Similar to Pyro 4, you can see that it has a landmark that you can see from space.
Again, another sign that they're getting into this whole differentiating planets by big features. This is super, super cool to see.
So let's fly down to the surface of the streak and have a look what it looks like.
This has to be filled with minables, so. If they don't concentrate minables in here, that's one of those sort of exploration-based features that they're gonna be, that's gonna be a huge missed opportunity.
Up, and then it goes down to form the crack, and then we scatter the ecosystem height maps on top to get the look that we want. So if we go down here, you can see we start with like flatland shapes, some smaller craters, and then...
Not a whore, thank you so much for the sub. Oh, look who it is. All right, bruh. Hold on a second, guys. Thank you for the sub, not a whore. Appreciate you. Thanks for the support. Let's see, I saw a question. You really need to ask, did this presentation make me feel like, oh my gosh, getting 200 systems fully designed isn't going to happen in my lifetime if they're building them so meticulously? I don't think, yeah, okay, somebody's saying, it'll be, there he is. I was gonna say, it's 100 systems. I don't know.
There he is!
I don't know if, I think that the rate at which they make planets is gonna get a lot better. Just from all the assets that they're making, at some point they'll be able to combine them to make believable planets without, good lord. They'll be able to make believable planets without needing to take so long on making new biomes that don't look like older biomes, because, you know, by the time we have a couple dozen systems, you start to forget the specific biomes and you can combine them more. I don't think...
There he is!
You freaking people. I don't think, okay, we need a cooldown. I don't think that they will... Gosh, I lost my train of thought, you assholes. Yeah, I lost it. Whatever I was saying, I hope it helped.
There he is!
Shut up!
Like these quite spiky looking mountain formations.
Oh my god.
And then down here,
Mrs. Tomato, what have you done?
feather into like these longer ridges of bedrock before it becomes smooth down here. And if we jump to this point, which is a really cool spot.
Oh, they
because,
found
like,
all
sun
of the
just hits
they
the
found all of the sound bites. You gonna run through them now? I know we
in
put
the
a
right
cooldown on the
way,
air
and
horn.
Everything looks like nice and shiny.
Hey, Anno.
You can see here that the ground looks quite different from other planets. So instead of soil, it almost looks artificial in a way. Asset-wise, we're using one of our obsidian sets that you can also find on Stanton 4. This one got a bit of an update, a bit of polish, so we improved.
For those who don't know, Stanton 4 is Microtech. Oh yeah, now I can open the window back up. I mean, he's done, so, you know, I'm free. Yeah, I was talking about the planets and how they'll make them faster. I think at some point planet I think the planet tech is going to be very robust to the point where it's not going to take them 2 years to make a system. Now, I don't know about 100 systems, honestly. I think 100 systems is insane. It was proposed back before they planned to do all of the planet tech, so I've never really... Even if there are 100 systems, I feel like I would never see all of them anyways. I think anywhere from like 30 to 50 systems, honestly, is enough for the detail they're going through and all the stuff that they can fill those systems with. I would love to see them keep going for the lifetime of the game. I hope to still be interested in and watching this game in 20 years. And maybe they'll be on system... I can't even, like, it'd just be so long. I don't know if they'll ever get to that point. But I do think that like anywhere from 20 to 50 systems is just going to be an absolute blast anyways. Anyways, back to the obsidian.
The shapes, different textures just to make it look extra cool, like the way the sunlight hits these surfaces. To make this area a bit more interesting, we decided to add some of these white light gray shrubs, just so the area doesn't feel too samey.
Rule of cool.
And it's always nice to have like the occasional pocket of
in 20 more years we'll have 5 more systems.
The obsidian biome apart from the rest of the planet, we went with the opposite route for
Journey to 10.0.
So
nice to see something. So I've never liked Ida's rocks. I think Ida is a cool idea for a moon, but I've never really liked the way it actually looks. This looks like a much better version of the same thing. I gotta say though, like just the way things look over distance just looks so good here. That it's slightly, ever so slightly occluded by the fog. I'm not sure if that really picks up over the stream. But even as such a boring gray looking moon, this still has me intrigued.
The vegetation is dry. We added some of these spiky shapes to add some verticality to the scattering. But yeah, outside the obsidian crack, this is what you will find on the planet most of the time. So this go-to point I picked to show some of the subtle color that we added to Pyro 5C. So the obsidian crack is like kind of just dark, gray, black. The desert
4.0, 5.0, 6.0, when will it end? It will never end! Numbers forever!
A bit of a color breakup.
I don't know, I can't tell you.
Some of these red hues to the occasional biome.
A lot of systems are just empty. It's true.
You also find the red sand.
But you can see even the empty systems like Pyro are taking quite a bit.
And it looks really nice how the red creeps up into the crevices of the height maps in the background.
Height maps always looking good in this.
We're going to end our showcase today on Pyro 6. Pyro 6 has a very interesting color palette. Like I really like the yellows and the pale beige tones of the terrain. And then
I think IAE will probably be November 21st or 20th.
You have another blue ocean. As you can see, the terrain is kind of ridden by craters. And we get
this is super cool. This reminds me of my old playground when you'd have like a bunch of footsteps in the mud and then the water would fill them up partially. I didn't even really notice this when we first watched this, but the idea of like an ocean that's pockmarked by craters, so they're kind of connecting but not, is really neat. I don't think there will be too much need for them, but It's certainly unique. It sets the planet apart, and it's something that's a little bit more like not standard. Again, stuff that we were getting in Stanton always just felt like very run of the mill. But even something as simple as an ocean in Pyro, they're starting to get to explore with a little bit more. That just makes me more excited for the next system.
Really cool shapes where the ocean fills in those craters. If we jump all
There
the
will
way
be
down
player settlements at some point, yeah.
of one of those craters. So now we're at the edge of one of those craters. I'm jumping in game right now just to show you what it feels like walking along here. You can see that we added some dramatic...
Ooh, a ground race through this area would be cool. It's also pretty and wild to see how wet it is, and then like he gets down here and it's just super dry and chalky. Super contrasty. I like it.
Looking coral shapes, and then eventually you walk down here towards one of those craters that's filled with...
Yeah, this is clearly one of their less finished planets so far. Pyro used to be an empty system, but not so much after the rework. True. And they might keep doing that with planets. Why does every ocean have to be water and be blue? I actually don't think the oceans are all water. There are definitely bodies of water on several of the moons in the game right now that aren't, or sorry, bodies of liquid that aren't water. So I don't know which ones are or are not water, but not all of them are. What is it being hit by so many asteroids? If it has liquid water, it most likely has a dense atmosphere, hence filtering out a lot of the smaller rock impacts. Makes no sense. Yeah, I think we should all forget about real life when it comes to these planets. I think they're starting to have more fun with these areas and make them more interesting as a video game as opposed to like trying to keep it realistic. Every year they kind of get more and more sci-fi, and I think at this point we should just forget about real rules for these things because they're just trying to make interesting spaces at this point. Yeah, this is CitizenCon stuff.
And I really like the color of the water and how it looks against the backdrop.
Oh, he calls this water.
Chalky terrain. Then over here, I want to introduce you to our human scale ref mesh. His name is Rüdiger. And he's super helpful when we set up object presets.
I'm sorry, who the guy?
Because you can immediately see how the scale of assets feel when you have him in situation. Like he adds context to the scene. He spawns every time that object preset spawns, and yeah, he helps us find the right values.
Who to what?
The scale of our assets. In general, this
craters could be old.
Here is another good
That's
example of how our ground textures work together with the assets that we put on top. So the transition is really nice from this ground texture to this one. And then we have like the same rock set on both of them.
What is Rüdiger? Is that a famous thing?
Amount of detail on the ground. Then occasionally we spawn some of these spider-looking
it's not science fiction. How is this game not science fiction?
This spot here is really nice because you get like the particles, the monochromatic terrain, the assets, and it's all against the backdrop.
What timestamp for the creature is 26 minutes?
Pyro system, which is
thank you. Oh, it's a name?
Some really cool looking
I see.
sunbeams coming through the volumetric.
That's
clouds.
Beautiful. I like that the unique shape of these rocks make the shadows look very much more interesting. Somebody was talking about pitch black earlier. These remind me of those pitch black rocks a lot, especially when you got the silhouette like that. Make something live in here and eat our faces.
And then if I turn the sun and we make this dark and I jump in game,
science fiction must remain in the realm of the plausible.
How drastically the skybox impacts the lighting when you're on
That's
the
an
dark
interesting
side of the planet, and the skybox is just it looks.
That is a
really
very
good.
interesting
So this
idea
is the
for
skybox for the entire Pyro system. So you will see it on every single Pyro planet. It's just that Pyro 6 has like a very thin
Skybox
atmosphere,
looks really
so
cool. I know this is going to be this is going to end up being a thing. This is going to get quoted when people are like, there's no Skybox because you just fly everywhere. And then it's like, well, there's a Skybox, but it's for the whole system. It's not for the single planets, which makes sense because, like, obviously these nebulas are not in the system. They're far away. But I always wondered if we'd ever actually see this stuff while we were doing the jump gates, but that doesn't seem to be a thing since they showed us the jump gates and you can't see outside them.
you see it well here.
If it's not plausible, it's fantasy. I feel like that's like you're treading on a very thin line to try and nitpick what people call sci-fi and not, though. Because, like, our realm of plausibility changes by person to person, right? Somebody writes a sci-fi book 50 years later, somebody else disproves what made it plausible. Suddenly it's not sci-fi, it's fantasy, and, like, semantics. I guess we could just call it all science. It's the science genre. It makes things much easier. But I like it. I like the fantastical nature of it. If we want to call it fantasy, so be it. Sci-fantasy, if that's the important thing. But I think that people will probably be confused if they don't just call the game sci-fi.
I'm happy to have had this opportunity to show you guys the work that we did.
A lot of classic sci-fi has far-fetched ideas. The connection is reality is often pretty loose, I think. Any sufficiently high-level technology is indistinguishable from magic. You think that him referring to it as water is just referring to the water shader? Yeah, I thought maybe he was just shorthanding it, calling it water. Oh, there was something I was supposed to be looking at here, right? What was the time? 26 minutes and 55 seconds, something like that. You could also say sci-fi could end up being correct and scientifically proven. Yeah, I guess, like, I don't know. I'm just going to start calling it science. Sci-fi has fueled a lot of real science, though. So what was sci-fi yesterday is science and real today. Star Trek is sci-fi. Star Wars is action-adventure. I always heard Star Wars referred to as sci-fantasy. To be frank, regarding sci-fi, Star Wars Episode 8 and 9 is less science fiction and more science fantasy. Star Wars is fantasy because of the Force notion that's supernatural. Hey, if Star Citizen had magic in it, I would definitely be like, okay, come on. Getting a little far now. So this is beautiful. I think the planet tech's really improved. And the biggest takeaways for me here are just the amount of new liberties they're taking in terms of how to make the planets interesting. We'll call them fantasy liberties. The interesting rock formations and shapes that they've put in here are, oh my gosh, and the low-lying fog. It's all really, really good looking. You just want a laser sword? The part 1 with morphologists is a 1 minute unlisted video. Wait, you guys can see that? Gosh, I hate that YouTube lets people see that stuff. It's not, that's not the video. It's not even supposed to be on there. Is it because it got added to a playlist or something? It must be, yes, it did. Let me take that off. Think there's always a difference between hard sci-fi and more fantasy sci-fi. Yeah, I mean, I've always considered Halo sci-fi, and I feel like Halo probably has things that aren't very plausible. Does it matter? I don't think it does. Although I would definitely not like to be called out every time I call the game sci-fi. Either way, at the end of the day, all we want is a nice story that makes sense and is well built. Yeah, and like some amazing gameplay built around it. This is already good enough for planets. And they're going to keep going. I know they will because they've got a great team of people on it. But this is already just absolutely unbelievable. If any of you are on the Planet team are watching by any chance, thank you for this. I can't wait for this. This is going to be fantastic to fly around and hopefully someday get some gameplay put into it. But in terms of just art, atmosphere, vibes, this is wonderful. I love it. You want a camping tent? How about a space camping tent? How would that work? It like seals you up in a vacuum. Oh, not in a vacuum. That would kill you. In a vacuum chamber filled with other things that you can live with. All right, next is this rather boring panel we're going to look at, talking about missions coming up, specifically a new investigation mission time, something we've been reading about a lot on the monthly reports. Do we have any explanations about the presence of vegetations on these planets? No. I don't even think they've rewritten the lore for the planets yet, just shown it to us. Other than there's a little bit of stuff to breathe on this planet. That's why they're there. This was a waste of a panel. This one was tough. Hopefully we can get a little bit more out of it, picking it apart. Grav generators, shields, quantum drives, regeneration. A lot of staples of sci-fi are totally impossible. Yeah, regeneration is definitely a... They whipped that one out of left field. Plant life on another world doesn't need to conform to the rules that plant life on Earth does. Cha-ching. That's the key to money. Throw plants on other planets. I think a lot of the panels were lacking due to head down work on 318. I think they could have done definitely better in their presentation of this. Less talking to us on camera and more explaining the mission as it was going along. You'd also point out the fact that general population really puts the meaning behind words. While the original meaning of sci-fi may be considered fictional stories and plausible setting, most of the population would call anything with space fantasy in it sci-fi. I definitely use it probably incorrectly as far as the definition goes. I say I like sci-fi games, but that in reality probably is a much smaller genre than I'm thinking. Rule of cool has to be in the front for a game to be good. It definitely helps to focus more on just being cool.
I'm a principal systems designer. I work with Luke Presley on the mission feature team. I'm here today to talk about one of the new mission types we're prototyping.
So this is an early look, a new mission type, and usually we don't give you a look this early. It's because we don't have the nice shiny visuals.
But people keep asking to see the design brief, so we thought, what the heck, we'll let you see.
Honestly, were people asking about the design brief? I didn't. I would have loved to. I'd love to hear more about the components of the actual panel, but the design brief itself, I'm not so sure about. Let's see. Covalix investigation mission. We can't skip it, but we will skip through it. Yeah. So I am going to use Board Gamer. He's got a copy of this mission up for us to watch.
You'll still get paid.
So this is kind of like the mission this is based off of. And the idea, I think the best way to look at this is if Miles Eckhart was our first bounty hunting mission, telling us to go and find a group of criminals and fight through them in waves, this is like what the new bounty hunter missions were to Miles Eckhart. I think what they're trying to do now is break this out of just this one specific scenario and make it a mission that can be applied to multiple ships, multiple locations, and multiple scenarios where you always have to investigate in the same way we do box missions or mercenary missions or stuff like that. So here is the template.
No way that's true. I know my husband. Darnell had his problems, but that is all in the past. I want you to go to the Covalix station and send me evidence that my husband is innocent. But even if you find out that he isn't, you'll still get paid. I know your time is valuable, and really, I just want to know the truth. I've attached the insurance claim to get you started. Good luck. And I hope to hear from you soon, one way or another.
Now we need to travel to the Covalix.
So just like in what they talked about with this new one, you hear that you kind of have the chance to figure out certain things about the mission. There are obvious pieces of evidence that will point you towards what happened in this mission, but there are extra bits of evidence that you can find that you don't really get pointed towards that can give you more information and get you a little bit extra payment and a more fulfilling conclusion to the mission.
Any info
Bored.
as you
Bored.
towards until continue to look around Covalex and possibly find out some more info. The
And
lighting
false
and
info,
zero
yeah.
gravity in Covalex really build quite a spooky, tense mission. There could be players around that are going to be quite shooty or aggressive if they want to be. I mean, you don't know how a player is going to react. And you're genuinely looking around for stuff. You're EVAing through lift shafts. It's quite an enclosed space. And in Star Citizen, we don't really get enclosed spaces much. When you're in your ship, you feel like you are your ship and you feel free. But this is a very different feeling.
Hey babe, I just got the package you sent. Thanks a million for the Moby mod. It is incredible.
The best part about these missions is that they are already more narrative than the other ones we get because they have to have some story to them.
Sorry for the noise. The crew surprised me with a shindig.
Right, we did. Hey, Anya!
Holy shit, is that a bottle of Esquire?
Damn right.
How did you afford this?
Let's talk. Hey, Darnell! Hey! Darnell! Get in on this!
No thanks.
Oh, come on!
Jeez, Darnell, look, just one. Maybe a sip. There we go.
Bye, Anya! Let's go. Darnell, one more.
Hey, look, I'm gonna get back to it, but let me know how your dissertation's going. Anyway, I love you and I miss you. Thank you again for the present. Bye, babe.
So after you find all this evidence, you can then submit it
Did a
at the
good job
end.
and we proved a man's innocence, but if we all
Found is true, I owe you. I wanted to let you know that I got the information you sent, and if what you found is true, I owe you a very big thank you, and Covalex owes me and my husband an apology. Thank you again. I'm uploading your payment to your account now.
We did a good job and we proved a man's innocence, but if we also check our Moby Mail, we can see that there's also a thank you letter from Elaine Ward. I just wanted to let you know that the information you found worked. Covalex exonerated my husband and my insurance company gave me the full claim. On top of that, the advocacy was able to arrest the people that Mel Ozolski had been working with. It turns out there was a reward for the information leading to the smuggling ring's arrest, and I want you to have it. I cannot express how much I appreciate the hard work you did on my behalf. It made all the difference. Best of luck to you, and thanks for everything.
So,
Well, this could have gone-
as people have pointed out in the comments, it's probably going to be easier for them to do these procedurally with mostly text-based evidence or pictures or stuff like that, and less of the voice work. But the reality of it, the good part about it is just that ultimately it's setting up a framework. So whether they do get voice lines or not, whether they have a specific NPC or not, the hard work is done to put it in place so that they can start to fill it out later. Yeah, that's a Board Gamer video we were watching. So we're going to skip through this one a little bit and just listen to kind of the things they have to say, and then we'll look at the actual gameplay at the end.
So a mission is built out of objective types. And the mission type really is just the most critical or challenging objective in that mission.
Currently, we have a number of mission types in the game. Some of these are not built in that modular sense. Some of these are very much bespokely built to test out a feature at one time. The original PI Wanted is one of those. The current mission types that do exist is we have deliveries, which are essentially a form of collect and drop off. We have eliminate missions, which is just kill someone, and eliminate ship missions, which is go there and kill destroy a ship that has a person inside of it. And there's many more. The way we see missions is they're comprised of little bits of gameplay. So, for example, We have missions where you're sent to kill a singular person or pick up a box or kill a bunch of enemies. So the way how we build our missions is we combine these together. So we'll have missions where you have to pick up a box, but we'll have enemies there that you have to kill as they're kind of like an obstacle for you to get around.
That isn't to say that you can't build a mission out of a single objective. The assassination mission, for instance, has one objective.
Somebody mentioned that they think investigation should be more gameplay type rather than a mission itself. Sounds like that's kind of what they're hinting at here. Yeah, we're building investigation missions, but ultimately this is an investigation segment of a mission that can be like Witchspace just said, I think in chat, chained together with a box delivery. Maybe you take somebody out, you find a notepad talking about a stash, you go get the stash, now you have to deliver it to somewhere, you deliver it to that place, turns out that person's dead, and you have to then complete an investigation to figure out how they died. This sounds like it's just another component of modular missions that they've talked about. Actually, this works out quite well for us. When we were looking at the quantum system in Star Citizen, connecting the dots here. Listen to this line by Tony. Listen to how he talks about missions. Where was that? Where was he talking about that? I think that was actually in the first. Hold on. I tell you guys to hold on like you're just gonna like walk away. You're stuck with me. Star Citizen. Quantum economy. Come on. Building a dynamic universe. Where is it? Dynamic universe. Oh my gosh. I can't spell. There it is. All right. He got into this with the whole mission thing and probability volumes. So check this out.
One of the
They already left.
probability volumes is that they usually represent a variety of low-frequency events. Space is big after all, and even in a pretty heavily populated area, you shouldn't be running into other ships all that often. The problem is that the likelihood...
Here we go.
Compatible mission.
Sorry, we want here.
We defer the activation for a short period of time and bend the probabilities of other things so that we're more likely to get a combination than would otherwise be the case. So they once again once again triggers the freighter's probability, but rather than you already got it. Yeah. So we're running a little bit ahead, but basically what you've seen here is the player hit the freighter's probability, held on to it. We bent the probabilities to increase the likelihood of anything else being able to be attached.
Some Tony Z lines.
That involved the freighter. It involved the pirate, rather. So why does this matter? Think about a pirate and a freighter being created separately. It's going to take a good while for the pirate to close the distance with the freighter, disable it, park next to it, and board it. This means that you'd never come upon a situation where the freighter's already been disabled and the pirates are rampaging through the ship, so you'd better hurry if you want to save the crew. That's actually a really interesting scenario, though, one that'd be a lot of fun to experience. So while we're fine with the systemic functionality, driving things by default, we want to be able to bend things towards more interesting situations without it ever feeling too random every once in a while. The problem with probability volumes, then, all comes down to their construction. Each one, and there are lots of them,
dang it, did I find the wrong place?
Curves and associated data, and is set up by hand, which is time-consuming.
I did.
And requires constant updating as other things change. One of the main reasons why they're so difficult to maintain is that many of the variables that a probability volume details should impact one another. More security in an area should have...
How did I miss this?
Curve determines that an encounter has occurred, at which point the probability volume queries the mission database with the freighter tag and instantiates a compatible mission. The player continues on, and shortly thereafter, the pirate's probability curve indicates a hit, which triggers another lookup into the mission database. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with this. In fact, it's a pretty accurate representation of what you realistically expect to see. Two rare events happening on their own schedule. The systemic behavior of the freighter and the pirate, even if spawned separately, would allow them to logically react to one another.
I thought they did another graphic for this, but basically what he's describing is that the probability volumes that spawn these missions we can take will be able to combine certain things. So they can combine a freighter type mission where you maybe have to escort or help someone, with a pirate type mission where you have to also destroy or kill someone. And I swear there was a better graphic surrounding these like mission combos that he talked about, but maybe that was another talk. I don't know. But I think that's sort of what they're getting at here. This is, yes, its own mission type that we can run, but it's also meant to combine with the other ones.
Assassinate a target. But even the most like simplistic mission, like the delivery mission, is actually built out of 2 objectives. There's the collection of the item and the delivery of the item. And
a quantum update would have been nice.
The collection of that item, like even more difficult, we'd refer to it as a collect mission rather than a deliver mission.
So our objective types, for the time being, have been pretty simple. You know, kill this person, go here, do this. Until now, we're now looking at doing one of the most complex type of objective and gameplay things we've tackled.
Last quantum update we got, like that was a video, was last CitizenCon. No, last summer. So it's been a year and a half. Although they did drop a couple details for 316.
It can feel like a bounty hunter, a mercenary, a person who does deliveries, you know, a cargo hauler. We want to make them feel like a detective as a new route. You know, we're expanding constantly. We're building
Agreed.
mining,
Which
salvage,
space?
And detective is going to be our focus in MFT.
The experience we want to give players with the investigation mission is that they feel like a detective, that they feel like they're collecting evidence that will ultimately answer the question that has been posed to them, and that they're able to kind of search through the evidence and find the red herrings and like choose the right answer.
So what we want is we want to build a mission that requires you to have to think, requires you to have to look around, search your environment in detail, look at each individual clue and make sure you fully understand it before you make your decision as the detective.
And there'll also be red herrings thrown in there, so evidence will really have to be like poured.
Was there an update on it in February? I don't think so. Maybe just a mention, but not like a full video. You don't think it worked? I don't know. They've been testing it with the refuel and repair stuff, but yeah, they haven't really talked much about it since then.
Or why have all the ship's crew come to be dead? Or why have
Outside of meshing and all the quantum is the biggest thing. Yeah, it's the biggest thing, and we don't really get to hear much about it.
So for this mission type, I don't want to breadcrumb players along. I want you to feel like a detective. I will give you a story, I will give you little bits of clues, and you have to make up this full sort of painting and decide exactly what has happened here. And then the rest of the decision is on yours. I might not tell you if it's wrong or right, you might find out.
Yep. They just stop talking about it if it's not
you
working.
feel like a detective and you're so sure of your decision that you're going with that. So the next stage in this whole process is building a pitch. You know, we have to come up with our ideas, how we want it to work, and then we have to present it to CR, Tony, and Todd, and make sure they're all happy with it and all of our visions are aligned. So when we're building the pitch, we start off by going over the ideal experience we want for the player. We start off with the most advanced things.
Environmental storytelling will be great, but like, how much can they be environmental about it when they're procedurally made? That's the hardest part about all this, is like, they could make some great templates for this mission, but if the procedural creation of them is still out of whack, like, is it going to be worth it? The not hand-holding part sounds really good. So far, has anybody gone to like a derelict site or somewhere where you're supposed to do something other than shoot or retrieve packages and felt any sort of a challenge yet? Or are we still waiting for those more convincing and interesting puzzles? Because I haven't really felt like there have been any puzzles that really got me going, huh, this is fun. They all just kind of feel like busy work. I wanna be Space Tomb Raider. I wanna be Space Raider. They need to expand on the Gundo shipping hub. Yeah. Yeah, they do. Linking that together with more stuff would be good. No challenges really, no. Ideally, these missions could be sparked by player interaction as well. Maybe a pirate robs an NPC ship, and the player gets the mission from that. Be cool if derelict spawned investigation missions. Based on something CR said, Tony Z has been super busy trying to push something more out the door, so probably just way too busy to talk about it. Any sort of update would be phenomenal. And I see a Mac attack dropping in here on Twitch. Hello. Drop that epic sax. Welcome, my friends. Welcome to the premier Star Citizen CitizenCon review events of the year, because nobody else is doing this. Pretty sure I was in Supermax's stream earlier and he was also going over CitizenCon stuff, so you're probably going to get a little bit of a review. What's my view on leaks? Leaks are cool, but I think you should be careful with how you distribute them and talk about them. I think leaks definitely damage people's confidence and excitement for the game that are working on it and should be treated accordingly. I feel like even with the dynamic, whatever they are trying to do, people will figure out the tricks or answers, and that's it. Everyone will get answers spoiled before they even see the mission firsthand. I mean, like 5% of people will. But you have to remember how few people actually ever see the leaks and the stuff that goes into the internet before actually taking part in it. Most people who end up playing Star Citizen will never watch any of these CitizenCons, right? So they're missing out on information that we're getting told to us just because there's so much time to tell it. Most people who jump into Star Citizen are never going to be able to look up the information that tells them that the Mercury Star Runner has crawl spaces. They might just get told it at some point randomly. In general, I think people posting the answers won't be a big problem, but I also think that if they do it right with the answers giving misdirection and being different for different scenarios, it should be pretty easy to dodge that kind of stuff in your own personal situation. Did someone take over Tony's role? There was a guy named Guillem at the end who was said to be the director of development for Star Citizen. Wasn't that Tony's title? I think there are multiple PU directors, but I can't be sure.
Answer, like something that is undisputable. For instance, we came up with a mission where
the investigation mission in the Reclaimers is pretty good. You liked them?
You can find some correspondence that will lead you to another place.
Thank you, Pregnant Sausage. Great name, by the way.
Like work itinerary on there. And they're all crossed off until one. And if you're smart, you'll go to that location. And should you go to that location and do a little searching, you'll find his body there, and he's been like electrocuted, fixing the final thing on his list. And there's your definitive ending. Whereas the second pitch...
Okay, so here we get to see some UI stuff, and it's not that much different from the other. This is probably a placeholder UI because we've already seen in the monthly reports that they are reworking the contract manager right now. Like actively in September, they spent a lot of time working on it. So what we're seeing now might not transfer over.
It's more about...
But we're seeing how they kind of categorize the suspects and then they provide points to those suspects based on the evidence you find. That worries me because I don't want it to be just pick whichever bar is most filled up, right? Obviously, as they said, that's not exactly how it'll be, since there will be there will be like misleading evidence and stuff like that, but I feel like it's a slippery slope. Don't make it just a mechanic where you just pick a bar. I want to have to think about this stuff.
Found a few more clues and followed them, you would perhaps find an
PH means placeholder.
Piece of evidence, like, you know, I did it kind of thing, that would get you like the bonus for the mission. And both pitches had their strengths and weaknesses. The simple pitch, we could see like how easy it was to scale, and it involved less complex narrative work. But we ultimately decided to go for the second because we liked the idea of giving the player the agency to decide when they were done.
Did we get to see the contract manager in that? I couldn't remember because I thought maybe they were saying that the contract manager was Star Citizen specific and that was like the squadron Moby. I'll have to go and look at that again.
So we're in the prototype phase with
It
investigation.
looks good though. The new Moby Glass looks
which is
good.
more important than ever because it's such a complex mission, and we need to ensure that it's scalable and that other designers can make their own mysteries with it.
That's the key. So these guys are working on the tech. They're not even designing the actual missions. They're just building out the template so that other people can make missions where they see fit. They go onto a pyro planet and say, this place looks like a good place to kill a Pico and make people figure out how that Pico died. Throw a mission in there.
Pitches, we can now prototype and sort of get that gameplay feel and see which one we want to explore more for the player's experience. Some of the hardest points of this are going to be the scalability of it. An investigation at its core is a story, so the story should always be at the forefront and the focus.
So the first stage of prototyping was to prove that we could make it
See you around, Shifty.
like a mystery happen in the most restricted location we have, which was like a derelict. So this kind of interplay between the crew of it. From there, we're going to expand so that it takes into account more locations and uses all of the evidence retrieval interactions that we currently have. For instance, like you can kill a guy and get information off him. You can find a corpse, get information off it. You can loot a box, get information.
That'd be
off
great
it.
to have to. They also have been talking about things like putting on a disguise to go into a place and be able to sneak into a place because people think you're the right person. I guess that's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's kind of what the 2019 CitizenCon mission was. That was essentially kind of an investigation mission that required you to go into a restricted area. So this could lead to interactions like that, where you have to sneak into areas, put on a different outfit, talk to somebody, or even kill someone to get past them. Hopefully you can do either or. That's what really makes the game stand out, is when you have the choices. You didn't get a message about the stream, but you enabled it. A new bite. Best way to get stream notifications is on Discord. I actually have a role in the Discord you can select, and it will always ping you whenever I go live or upload a video.
And then we'll be prototyping the newer ways of getting information off of things. We're looking into using the med gun to find the name and cause of death of people. And we're looking into being able
I haven't noticed it flagging me as Ninetales.
Moby Glass in an inventory and download data from it.
One of the hardest things that we have to figure out is the story. The investigation will live and die by its story.
Yeah.
So we work very closely with the writers to try and figure out what kind of story.
What are these? These are just placeholder explanations. See, that's the thing that's a little tricky. It's like, it can't just be one story. That's going to get old even if it's in different locations. So that's going to take a lot of writing.
We want to tell, what kind of clues we want to give, and then after that point we look at sort of what obstacles we want to put in your way, keypad locked doors, enemies, like traversal puzzles.
30Ks.
Wow.
Things like that.
The main challenge for creating this mission is ensuring that the player has enough guidance to complete it without putting mission markers on everything. Like, it is supposed to be about them searching, figuring clues out for themselves, and finding the answer themselves.
We want you to still feel like that detective, but ensure that we're giving you enough information in the ways that we can.
And we're working with the UI designer on the new Moby Glass, which should really help with this.
New Moby Glass. New Moby Glass. Every time they mention it, I get so hyped.
This has been our video design brief on our investigation missions. We're really excited to bring these to you. We wanted to give you an early look to let you know what we're thinking and see what you're thinking about these as well.
And we're really excited about it because it will allow us to project a lot more story into the position.
This was probably the least interesting panel of the whole thing, but now we get to jump into one of the more interesting ones. I believe it was the new Underground was the next one, right? This is a very interesting one. We're going to spend some time on this because this one's got a lot of good info in it. Oh my God, the volume! My poor ears.
Hello, I'm Ian Leyland. I'm the art director for Star Citizen, and today we're going to talk about underground facilities.
Okay, now, This is something I missed in the lead up to this panel. We're going to talk more about art than... We're going to talk more about gameplay and stuff. We're not just going to focus on art. But it's good to remember that this panel is basically all art because he's an art director. Yeah, so we will do some theory crafting here and talking about stuff that we already know from like monthly reports and stuff. But just remember that most of the details he talks about are going to be based on what he does, which is art. Let's get into it.
Now, this was a presentation that we gave Chris internally a little while back. And what we're going to cover is how we're going to take one of the locations we have in the game right now, but actually really design it from the ground up to be the location archetype that we really wanted. Okay, let's get started.
Oldies but goodies.
Let's talk about the original underground facilities. Now, the problem was we made these originally for the CitizenCon presentation demo, and the time we had
honestly, that on its own is like, I don't know. I didn't know that. I thought that they made them for Hurston and then just made sure to focus on them in the demo. The fact that they're admitting that they were made for that demo means that they probably did not consider the rest of the game when they were making them, which I guess is what he's explaining now. But like that gets me so much more interested in what they're going to use to replace it, since now they've got an actual game to think about and like actual processes and professions that need to take advantage of that space. Because like, if you're going to make something for a quick combat demo in a one-time show and then throw them in there for additional gameplay, you're not really going to put that much effort into them, right?
Where we wanted it to be. Now, it kind of fits the current purpose. It's fairly small.
You don't understand why I invest so much time in one mission that people will do and get bored after repeating it 3 times. Are you talking about the investigation mission or these areas? What is the wait what referring to, Cantor?
Scale, it gives a multi-room layout opportunity for FPS combat, but we always knew we wanted it to be able to scale, you know, small, medium,
investigation
large to...
I think from what they were saying of the investigation stuff was that they're setting up the template. They're not making a single mission. Those guys were setting up the tech to make missions actually work, so that then the writers could fill in modules. They could write out sections of the missions, and those could be thrown together in different ways in different areas. So they're kind of doing what the team with Derelicts are doing right now. They're building out a single derelict site, but then making it in a way that other people can take it and add different missions and stuff to those locations. What was made for Hurston? Oh, these bunkers, these underground facilities were made for the original Hurston demo in CitizenCon.
Accommodate maybe 60 minutes of gameplay time per location.
The game is definitely not already funded, Quark. They have like 800 employees and they're running on like what, an $8 million surplus or so every year in terms of budget. They've got people that they're going to have to be paying for years on end. They haven't funded that money yet.
Go about designing a location archetype from the ground up. So what we do is we split the location into the core.
That being said, I think they should release the ships at the same time too.
Areas we want to visually develop. Now for underground facilities, the first thing we're looking at here is what we're calling Zone 1. So this is the presence on the landscape. So what we're looking at here is an example key art shot of what a medium-sized underground facility could look like. So dominant features that we're seeing here is a kind of a key spire. This is instantly where your player, you should be able to navigate towards. This could be like a...
That's not feature creep.
Wing.
The fact that they have to pay employees in the future isn't feature creep. They literally have to keep the servers running. They have to keep the customer service running. They have to keep the people who are running the website going. Like, even if they cut all feature development at this point, they'd still have to be making money. They can't just be like, okay, we've made enough money, don't take any more. I mean, I don't think that they're doing it in the best way, but it would be crazy for them to not continue to make money to cover their expenses in the future. They don't take the bait. I mean, it's like, it's easy to misunderstand, but the game is not funded. It's not even finished. It's not even close to finished. Nearly died watching this one. You love the concepts. Seeing the shot of the medium facility and imagining all the turrets. Oh no, all those stupid turrets shooting through freaking hills.
An executive landing pad on the top. And then moving down, it's very important to be able to get the landing pads or the landing hangars quite close to the facility, because we wanted that experience as the player lands. They're not far off from the location, they're actually quite close, and you should be able to see a little FPS area where the player lands. Also, what we're seeing here is some visual justification at what might actually be going on. So you're seeing, processing and tanks and supplies actually on the landscape there.
I'd be curious how interactive those things are.
Kind of a much braver visual presence on a landscape. So we designed the silhouette primarily, so you'd be able to...
Yeah, they got to a point where they were fully funded, and then they expanded the game.
So what we're seeing here is we thought it'd be cool to actually have surface entrances as well. So we're actually thinking about primary, secondary, and tertiary ways for the player to...
Can see these as both mission hubs and mission locations. So that's what I was thinking. The way they describe these are that they're both corporate areas and also industrial areas, that they basically... It seems like you should be able to come here outside of a mission and encounter more things. They feel like a cross between the towns and the cities. There are multiple facilities here. There's landing, there's cargo, there's mining, there's refining. And I'm hoping these are more hubs than just locations you go for missions, like you're saying, Witch Space, yeah. And that sucks, that's my point. Yeah, a lot of people aren't happy with that, but it doesn't necessarily mean they could just stop funding the game. If you're having problems logging into the new hub, delete your cache files. I haven't even checked that place out yet. Now it will be fun old game for my kids to play when it comes out in 20 years. Why wait 20 years to play it? Like, if you believe that the game is already funded, then it should be at a state at which you're comfortable with the gameplay. Why wait 20 years to play it and not just like play it as it's being made? It's still live. There's still fun things to do. Maybe it'll be a couple years before they're truly polished, but like there's no reason to wait super long to play it just because they haven't made it go live. It's like a real world factory. It has its admin and offices and trading areas and production working area. Yeah, and I'm wondering if they're going to have any habitation areas here too.
We have surface entrances as well, so we're actually thinking about primary, secondary, and tertiary ways for the player to get into these locations, depending on the mission scenario. So like I said before, you've got like executive pads at the top, you've got the main hangars in the middle, and surface entrances down there below. Now moving on to the inside.
I've heard that theory that these are kind of like setting up for dungeons or raids. So this is that area I was talking about. It feels like you should be able to just, honestly, I feel like I'm looking at Control. This reminds me both of Missions in Control and Halo ODST. I don't know, I get the vibe of like an empty lobby that's abandoned because there was some attack on the facility and you're doing an investigation to try and figure out who the bad guys are, where they are underground. Like the raids you're talking about. Like they could set up some great narrative stuff in these locations.
Now these are going to be quite interesting because we'll be able to rebrand these depending on the manufacturer or the location. That's where we'll get a lot of the variety. But this is the corporate presence before the player would go down into the bowels of the facility. And what we're seeing here is, just an example of what a bearing reception could feel like.
Imagine if they brought these into the game, these massive areas, and they were just like, all right, deliver 3 boxes here, fly away. Oh, I'd rip my face off. That would suck.
Now moving into Zone 2, with it being an underground facility, the physical act of going underground, that's cool, right? So we wanted Zone 2 to be...
We'll say this, when we were watching this, I was not happy with all the concept art. I really wish they had gone a little bit more with the gray and white box footage while they were doing this. Maybe even shown a player character walking through these unfinished areas. It'd be nice.
Be about the logistics of the player going up and down and how we can make that cool visually, but also interesting from a player experience. So this is the transit, the elevator network. So we played around with a few different ideas into this, and one of the things that we thought could be quite interesting
this kind of reminds me of Lorville.
The elevator itself could be a mini play space. So what we're looking at.
They said it'll have multiple mission kinds. Cool. I think your issue is you straight up don't believe any of this will make it into the game until it does. That's fair. It's a fine way to look at it. Like, if you set your expectations that the stuff that they're showing won't make it into the game, then you're always going to have a better time when you finally get into the game and it's there. I don't think that should be a good reason to stop playing, though. And I think if you're not enjoying the game, stop playing. But if you enjoy it and you just don't want to play it because it's not ready, then you're robbing yourself of the experience if it's something that you already want to do. But yeah, not trusting these things until they're in the game is a great way to live. And going a little bit further and like only trying it out once a year while they're developing it is probably also helpful. I think they should play with the idea of finishing the game.
So what we landed on here,
believe it or not, as they work on it, it is continuing towards a finished game.
Here is something that we felt quite comfortable with internally. Now it's worth noting we're designing these as an archetype first in...
This location makes me think of Halo... What is that, Halo 2? Yeah, Halo 2 on the orbital station at the beginning of the game when you're going down the elevator and fighting the Covenant.
And then this elevator should be big and clear enough for the player to understand, like that's where logistics will go up and down. And for the elevator itself, we wanted it to be its own play space. So on the top level, that's where containers will be shipped up and down. But maybe underneath it, there could be little nooks and crannies. If we wanted to stealth into the location, we'd be able to give opportunity.
Cairo Station, that's it.
And down below,
yeah,
this is what
the Max
player
Station.
would kind of see. So now they're really starting to get into the bowels of the facility. So echoing of that control room down below. But also this is where we'll present the player with an opportunity to...
So this is why I'm kind of like... I'm really hoping that they are putting more here than just missions. Or more than even just raids. Like, this looks like the kind of place that people should be able to be working. A player should be able to come down here and do box deliveries from this place, maybe to a nearby station, but also they should be able to have fully inclusive gameplay in just this space. You should be able to come here and do refining gameplay or something, because this is so much different space. And I can't imagine this is just space for players to be running and fighting through. That's a lot for something that looks like it can be scaled out to meet a lot of the needs of the game. Starfield looking cool. Dude, have you seen the new Starfield concept art? Before She'll, thank you so much for becoming a top supporter member on YouTube. Remember, as a YouTube channel member, you get exclusive videos. Check them out on the homepage.
Because of how we design is we look at things about from the player's point of view. So what we're seeing here is pretty good indication about how the player would exfiltrate from the location. So a lot of the lines are leading towards the
Hey, Retrix, I agree with you there. Most of the stuff doesn't work. Very frustrating.
Moving on to Zone 3, so this is the bowels of the facility. So these are going to be spaces that we've never really explored before. A lot of the locations in the game tend to be quite...
This honestly reminds me of some of the Halo 3 maps, multiplayer maps. What was that one map with all the tunnels?
An ant almost to the location. The primary purpose is not for you to be walking around, so we dedicated spaces towards logistics, and we put kind of personnel walkways almost as a secondary element. So in this image, you're kind of seeing where, you know, big trucks could kind of go.
Okay, theory time, theory crafting time. The way he's talking about not having to walk around here because you're driving and stuff, do you think that there are going to be Savo Highway? No, it was the, hold on, let me see if I can find it. Do you guys think there are going to be reasons for us to have ground vehicles down there, actually, or is that just like a, what's it called? Flavor Town. Halo 3 multiplayer map in tunnels? Let's see. This one. Whatever this map was called. I don't know what this is. Rat's Nest? Yeah, I think this is Rat's Nest. That reminds me of this. This area gives me vibes. That's how I always thought about it, at least. No, go pick up your boxes and be happy. I imagine how cool it would be. Okay, let's go crazy now. If there were underground tunnels connecting all these outposts. What? That'd be dope. They'll likely put in tram systems or buggies and mules. I hope they put in mules for us to drive around. Pick up boxes. You were not expecting them to show off so much concept, so this panel disappointed you. Yeah, this panel definitely annoyed me with all the concept art. I think it helped that there was some stuff coming on afterward that was a little more white box, gray box, but for the most part, yeah, I was not particularly happy during the explanation of this, especially right after the long, mostly just talking design brief. Stuck on buffering. Dang. All right, MGL. I'll catch you later.
And almost to the location. The primary purpose is not for you to be walking.
He shows
around.
vehicle elevators. I keep wondering if that's just more Flavor Town, though.
And we put kind of personnel walkways almost as a secondary element. So in this image, you're kind of seeing where, you know, big trucks could kind of go, but we've also got like little nooks and crannies for the player to kind of explore.
Oh, JG.
Now,
thank you for the 500 bits, my friend.
Location dedicated towards the moving of logistics. We wanted to explore and have fun with vehicles, right? So here we're seeing the mule kind of coming and going on one of these walkways. You know, maybe there's elevators. So on the right, what we're seeing is a ladder. So with all of these play spaces, as we were having fun and visually exploring, we always kept in mind of different ways for the player to traverse through the scene. Also, as part of that, we wanted to think about verticality, so not just a linear direction of traversal, but also ways in which we could go vertically. So maybe there's the concept of a cargo elevator within the corridor. So kind of similar to how you'd see on a character be a little control room looking at the flight deck. Here you could kind of see something very similar. Maybe this ties into gameplay puzzles about how you could bring cargo in and out. You know, maybe as a player, you're trying to steal some cargo out. There's tons of potential.
Or even just using this as a cargo spot where you come, you land underground, you wait for your ship to be loaded up. In the meantime, while your ship's being loaded up, you explore the nearby area, then eventually you fly away. Just having the nice area to be doing that kind of stuff in would be cool. I don't even need it to be an investigation.
Could do puzzles in that regard. So looking at this image, we took loads of inspiration from modern day aircraft carriers about how you see...
So I was also kind of annoyed with all the maybes and stuff. And then I realized the reason he's playing maybe is what I talked about at the beginning of the demo. He's art. So he literally cannot tell us what the gameplay would be because that would be putting his own devs under the bus. If he were to say something about what the gameplay actually would be in this area, the other people who actually build the gameplay would then have to go and make it based on his word because people would be being like, well, he promised us that and you guys aren't making it. I think this is where the part of the disconnect is in that like having multiple of their teams in these talks would be much better. Assuming the gameplay people haven't started working on the gameplay here. But So it's probably too early for them to be in it. But like the art guy is just going to keep saying maybe because he can't actually throw in the realistic expectations of what there would be here. And maybe that was a problem on their part. Look at that. I said maybe. Maybe that was a problem on their part doing another art-based panel. I think they would have been better off talking about something more gameplay related. I agree with you guys there. But I don't think this guy is going to be talking about that stuff. Then bring us his boss. His boss is also an art person. Now, who we would need here would be... Gosh, who would be here? I guess the Sandbox team. Narrative? No, not narrative. Be the Sandbox teams. Artists live in Maybe Land. They provide the space design, then flesh it out with what happens there. Our hangars will be connected to these places. You think so, Jedi? Maybe, yeah, maybe in the outposts. I mean, if they go with all this stuff, they are 100 times bigger than all the city locations. You could spend hours inside them. Yeah, so it will probably be more limited than it looks like in this concept art. Bring his boss. Just working our way up the line. Eventually we'll just have Chris in this panel, and then you know how that goes. Ah. Did I see the new ships? Yeah, they're pretty cool. You have a degree in 3D character animation and special effects. If it worked in the game, I'd be in his department. I see what you mean, but just have 2 devs on the panel or just don't keep the maybes. Yeah, having more devs on the panel would help. But I'm guessing, like, so you could see the point that they're at. They're at the blockout stage, so like a lot of this stuff is existent in the game, but for whatever reason, the people who are developing the gameplay and stuff that goes along inside it don't feel confident enough to showcase it or talk about it in any definitive terms, I guess. These areas are only about the size of the Orison platforms we have the siege on. Fair. CR's favorite word is also maybe. Right, which is why we shouldn't work our way all the way up to CR when it comes to stuff like this. Are there going to be any Banu systems? Yes, there will be, but we don't know any details around that. Where was I in this talk? I don't even remember what I was looking at. This? Probably want the area finished before they make the gameplay.
That goes down, you'd see other ways to kind of traverse through into the facility. Okay, so what we're looking at
a lot of that looks like Maya blockout.
Kind
Gotcha.
of an example corridor. Now, corridors in our game are quite important to us, but they don't necessarily have to be boring. Now, what we're seeing here is an establishment of a radial motif. Now,
they are definitely highlighting the concept art.
We wanted to always imply that there's a weight kind of pushing down. So this radial motif is the best load bearing.
It's like a maybe of men all the way to the top. No, you missed what I was going for there. I was basically saying this dude's boss is art. He's art, and then eventually it gets up to like a director. It would be a sidestep to somebody else's complete different team for us to know who's actually talking about this stuff. You know what? That actually is kind of funny. The people who would probably be best for this are the people who were talking about the investigation missions, right? They're the people who plan out the actual gameplay mission. And then you have these people who actually put it into practice with the tech, who are people like Dan Truffin. So like you have all these different teams, they're just split up against different panels because they're talking about the different things, the different states that each of these things is at. So like the power system state is at a different place from the underground facilities, which are at a different place from the ship that's already in the game, or at least flying around in the game, which is a different place from, I don't know, something else. They all seem to be covering different parts of the process of these things. When in reality, I think a lot of people would appreciate if they just covered the major pillars each year or something like that. Oh, he's the art director. Well, there we go. His boss is Chris.
So in this traversal corridor, what we're seeing is a few different things.
Clearly, they make it through iteration. They're not building it at a fixed recipe. It evolves.
But also on top of that, you've got these sides.
I trust Witchspace because he makes games.
Split hierarchy, so it would be pretty cool for FPS combat.
I look tired.
Opportunities there.
Well, thank you.
And then leading in, underneath, you're kind of seeing a tertiary route. Now, part of this could be this maybe is stealth route, or maybe this is the upper area is blocked off, so the player has to go down below. So even within something as a concept of a corridor, we want to design many different avenues for the player to traverse. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the underbelly of that concept we just showed. So up above, dedicated towards logistics, maybe containers going through, shipping containers going through. But underneath here, maybe this is just more towards the processing of it. Maybe hydraulic cylinders for these elevators coming and going. Hierarchically, it's a different mood. So up above, it's cleaner, it's noisier, but down below, darker, more steamy. And again, that presents other opportunities for gameplay. Now, we can't have these corridors going on forever. Performance-wise, we'd never be able to draw it, and it wouldn't be the most entertaining for the player. So
Hallway's got to end.
the idea of introducing these bulkheads. So these bulkheads are almost checkpoints. So it enables us to break that draw distance, but it also enables us to break the rhythm of traversal. So from going from a corridor into an ops room or something like that, that's a way in which to kind of checkpoint the progress.
That'd be cool if this led to more areas in the cities.
So inside these bulkheads, we could maybe array like ops rooms. Maybe these are scanning checkpoints to kind of monitor the movement
Maybe.
of cargo.
I should get a sound bite for that. Maybe.
Also inside here, there could be
Maybe.
tea rooms or break rooms or offices. So again, we're trying to break the rhythm of traversal, so the player's going from a large space to a small space, but also from one theme to another theme. And what that will hopefully do is create a really good rhythm of play space where the player's not getting bored of traversing through the space. So what we're seeing here is a side view to kind of explain how that process. So on the left, we've come in from the corridor. So on the top, we're seeing the primary route through, and we're seeing the bottom route coming in as well.
Everyone,
so this is
fancy
how
a spot of tea.
we're going to try and keep verticality as a traversal motif in mind. Now going from a large corridor set to what we're considering here medium or small. So these are the tertiary.
Now there's the murder hall.
That will link into the primary.
Look at that. Perfect shooting range.
These again will be
That's where you go for your combat missions.
the radial motif that we've been seeing, and these would take the player and connect into the main spaces. Now from traversal networks to theme rooms. Now as the player's traversing through, we wanted to channel
Again, these spaces are so huge. I cannot imagine them just using these for like some missions where you're moving through them. You gotta have stuff to do in these areas.
Go too specific, just so that
And that's
in the early development process.
me agreeing with you there. I would love if they had an actual gameplay director in here to talk about what's possible here, but honestly, I feel like that would also just end up with maybes, and like, we could do that. We don't know if we will do that. Like, that's a possible mission, but might not be the one we need at the time, all that kind of stuff.
Then as we get higher up, we're seeing that very dominant kind of technical control wing suspended over the play space. As an idea, this creates a plethora of interesting opportunities as a play space to fight the way through or solve puzzles. One of the things early on we wanted is cause.
Yeah, they could definitely be used for multiple missions. Rhino, they talked about scaling them down. They mentioned that these are the bigger ones, and then they'll have smaller ones that are scaled down from that.
Another theme room idea we came up with was processing. So bringing in raw materials, processing them through, ready for manufacturing. So we had a bit of fun with ways in which we could kind of create these quite interesting set pieces. So it's not all just industry in the underbelly of these underground facilities. There's also going to be technical areas, areas dedicated towards...
Amadeus, it sounds kind of like what Witchspace is saying, is that the people, the gameplay people do ask for the spaces, but since they're just asking for the space to do things in, they don't necessarily give all the details of the gameplay they have planned. So these people are just... Like, the way I imagine it goes is a gameplay person says, hey, we're going to need areas that can be used for the missions we want to do. We have to run planet-side missions in outposts that are much larger than what we have, and they need to be underground. So then the art people say, okay, we'll concept that up for you. They concept it all out. They get all of the things done. They don't know the specifics of what might happen, like hacking missions or retrieval missions, but they know that people need to be able to move through them, fight through them. There need to be computers. There need to be a corporate area so that people can meet a mission giver there, and they say, okay, now this area is concepted out, give it back to the gameplay people who, I don't know, vet it and say, hey, this looks good, start building it in game. And then finally, after it's built in game, the gameplay people come back and put in the specific parts. I don't know if that's exactly how it works. That's how Witchspace makes it sound. That's how we used to work in my company when we would do like simulation modeling for some of the, I worked in commercial HVAC, and we would need to simulate airflows, water flows, cooling effects, and stuff like that. And instead of us, the engineers, going to our digital guys and being like, hey, fill out this and this and this and this, we'd say something like, hey, we need a chiller, we need a simulated room, we need a couple of vents, and then we'll take care from there. And they kind of would make it to our specs, but not super specific. But that wasn't video games. So concept art is dreamed up based on the design brief, design review, and refine concepts a few times. Then folks do clear cuts on meshes, some review process. I'm assuming that's what happens in between the white and gray box stuff, is like the going back and forth to make it more specific. It's like climbing a staircase. You just keep adding one step on top of the other until the destination's reached. Art, gameplay, narratives. Just think it was a crappy CitizenCon panel with lots of maybes. Yeah, I think the way this was presented was not done the best that it could have been. They would get storyboards to base the concept on the actions of gameplay. Gameplay was always an afterthought so far. So I have no trust in that. You were a tin knocker? I didn't work on HVAC, but I helped like design and sell it. Just ran through a bunker where all the NPCs were skipping around. I was able to knife them all to death while they bugged out. And the last guy says, I bet you wish you would have played this differently. Nah, man. Got you all with a knife.
Wings. And also as a bit of fun, if the player...
You work in HVAC, Oliver?
These executive wings, then we're seeing another type of art style in here as well. So we've seen industrial, we've seen technical. Now we'll be seeing, more like the corporate foyer we saw up above. So meeting rooms, office spaces, that sort of thing.
Bro,
and
you're
what we're
back
seeing
already?
here is maybe there's the data processing of the location. So as a quick idea, we thought these data racks are actually submerged for cooling in a base of water. We thought also it'd be cool if there's a cause and effect. So if the player solves a puzzle to go from it being below water to above water. So again, ways in which we can kind of spark ideas or conversations with design about
Get on your witch space.
opportunities. And then lastly, Zone 4. Now, it wouldn't be a missed opportunity.
You're an HVAC tech.
Go into some sort of
Cool.
organic.
My thanks goes out to you. I'm sorry about the hot mornings.
Could be excavation zones or areas where it'd been abandoned. This could lead into cave.
Oh, your father was in it.
This was something we had quite a bit of fun with. So how do we actually take the player from being in this fairly well-established industrial location to a cave? There needs to be some form of transition period. So we came up with ideas about how we'd see excavation equipment or, with the roads kind of peter out.
I like to imagine that these areas, these sort of collapsed areas that they're talking about, are ones that will actually have caves connected to them. So you can kind of extend the space and get into a place that's maybe like kind of contraband compared to the rest of the outpost. But that's hopium. That's not in any way, that's not confirmed or backed up by any sort of proof. You just notice why we can't see ourselves in mirrors. It's because they aren't mirrors at all. I don't know, you might be a vampire. I can see myself in mirrors. One advantage of developing a massive MMO slowly is that by the time we have multiple systems and dynamic server meshing, by that time that happens, server hardware will have improved significantly. That will help address a lot of the AI problems. I hope so. Hot days mean more work. Yeah, but like, you guys go out there on the roofs, it gets so hot. Think this stuff will be like the derelict stuff? Yeah, like the ruins that they made. They've shown that they've got some work done on this. That's kind of what they just said, did they? Am I an idiot?
Fairly well-established industrial location to a cave. There needs to be some form of
an alternative way into the base.
period.
Yes, that would be sick. That would be so cool. You could find a way to sneak into the base from somewhere else.
So we came up with ideas about how we'd see excavation equipment or, with the roads kind of peter out. And as part of the roads, maybe we can do some pretty cool layouts for the player to drive through. Something that's a little bit more invested than just a
Oh, that's the
line.
mosque.
Now, as part of that transition period between heavy industrial to exposed cave, the equipment needed to create further UGF spaces. You know, maybe there's a large boring machine still there.
You see, this is cool. I don't even know. I can't even imagine what the gameplay would be here. A lot of this looks like site dressing, Flavortown kind of stuff. But like, if you could get mining contracts here, it wouldn't be high interest. I don't think it might not even be worth it to do, because who wants to go into some corporate section to go mine for crap that's probably been mined up thousands of years earlier? But I'm trying to imagine missions that can take place here, gameplay that can take place here that's not combat related. I think that's super important to consider when they're looking at these places.
Again, maybe that comes into some form of gameplay opportunity for the player to traverse over, interact. That's kind of cool. Also, as part of that, another opportunity to introduce a new element to the space could be,
what's up, Wyborg?
as we're transitioning towards more natural spaces, we can not only introduce different types of geology, but maybe we're introducing some form of liquid. So depending on the location, maybe it's on a certain planet, there could be like underground rivers, underground lakes, maybe it's
You hunt
lava,
clients during the day and bounties at night. Okay, did he just say underground lakes?
Location, maybe it's on a, maybe we're on being in.
Wait, go back, go back,
Just a-
go back.
To of that, another opportunity to introduce a new element to the space could be, as we're transitioning towards, maybe it's on a certain planet, there could be like underground rivers, underground lakes, maybe it's lava, maybe it's acidic. And also if we're describing these locations as maybe some are more...
I'm still waiting for water-based caves. I'm not doubtful that we'll get water in caves just because it makes a lot of sense. But I wonder how long that'll take.
abandoned. We could start to showcase how nature slowly started to take over. This also would introduce some pretty cool opportunities. So also another process we do during concept development is I like to start
Still unclear how far this new area is away. I would say no closer than a year. Maybe closer to 2. But they're building them in different sizes, so we very well could see a small location like this replace everything with 4.0, and then some of these larger ones come in much later.
And some of these ideas we're developing and get them in the engine as soon as possible. And what this affords us is we can sit down with Todd and we can really evaluate how well an idea is working in terms of space, size, composition, gameplay opportunities, right?
So now that is what he's talking about. Todd Pappy being the person who would decide that gameplay. He's basically saying, hey, I made these areas. We built them to specification. This is where the gameplay directors start to come in and talk more about the specific stuff that happens there.
From the early visual development process. And what we're looking at here is...
Yeah, I'm not saying we'll see this in 4.0. I'm saying maybe we will see the small ones, read small, replace the current small ones that we have right now. That's not a for sure thing. Not saying that is a probable thing. Just saying that it is possible that they will roll them out over time rather than trying to add all of these different sizes at one time, which is obviously a lot more work in a smaller amount of time. Thing to bear in mind is that not one space like the current, this is not one space like the current bunkers. These are modular drop-in levels designed to be fielded in a mix and match form based on gameplay needs. It feels like it's going to use Houdini and the Mighty Bridge stuff in the same way that the space stations and caves use.
Very loose concept meshes brought into the engine, quickly lit, just for that.
And if they did develop them in the same time as the outposts, everybody should remember that we didn't know about the derelict outposts until January of this year. It was the first time they ever mentioned a derelict outpost in any way whatsoever. We didn't see any white box. We didn't see any gray box. We didn't hear about any gameplay. And within 4 months, they had those locations in the game with new missions and new tech like planetary AI and dropships. So it's fair to think that with the way the locations teams are building things now, just because these things are in concept or in early gray box and white box work, doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming years later. This team has proven that they are better than a lot of the other teams at CIG at fulfilling the stuff that they're showing off. Thank you, Architect, for the raid. Appreciate it. Let me toss you a shout out real quick. Oh, I spelt that name wrong. Arc with a Q. Look at you. Good afternoon, Snob Goblin. Any advice on starting to make money? Depends on how much of the game you've played so far. You think they're going to build them in a somewhat modular way, like space station components, so each underground facility will likely have a different layout? Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal. Maybe not like the first one, but eventually, yeah, I think so. That's the Montreal locations team that did the Derelict's ruins. Let me double check and make sure. But that's kind of like, that's what I keep pointing to, because people keep saying things like this is the same CIG that we were seeing in 2018. And the teams, specifically the point of interest teams, have proven that they are much more efficient at getting these things done. I don't even, do they even have them listed? Derelict? No, they just have the derelict ships. They don't even have derelict outposts on here. Let's see if they have the Montreal sandbox team. Is that it? Derelict spaceships. No, they don't even have it on here. So I wonder what that was included under. But the Montreal team and the EU locations team do a really good job with their work. Where were we? Feel at this point I should be one since the org you lead is dead. How do you sign up to be a guide? I think it's on the website. That's a really unfair thing to see, since we've been seeing the time to market for the things shown in CitizenCon to getting in game getting much tighter. Yeah, overall they've been getting better at it. At the very least, they've been getting better at showing things that they're more confident in. When is the game coming out on console like PS5? Oh boy. I don't think that's going to happen. Unfortunately. Sorry to say. That's some French Canadians. That Squadron 42 leak, while unintended and spoilery a bit, I think was an unintended effect of positivity. Maybe. I never watched it. A lot of what was shown last CitizenCon is much more integrated. Except for the pyro and the mission, yeah, a lot of that stuff did end up getting into the game in like some limited fashion. Just wish they finished the Raylan.
That's an overview of what we're pushing for the new underground facilities.
Yeah, I don't think consoles are going to get Star Citizen. Maybe at some point in the future, Squadron 42, but Star Citizen is going to be pretty focused on PCs.
About it, and hopefully you are soon, and we look forward to showing you more in the future.
So that was all concept art, but here is some of the in-game work that they've done on it. And Witchspace was saying a lot of it looks like Maya blockouts, but also some of it does look like it's in-game engine sort of white box kind of phase, which is usually, I mean, for locations, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to specify where that might be in the locations timeline. Android and iPhone. Get out of here. Yeah, for something of this scale, it's different, but that's why I'm thinking the smaller ones will come first. They're going to be much easier for them to finish than something this size, like the medium one. Meshes will likely be replaced. Ooh, boxes on rails. I bet you the work that they do on this is closely related to the stuff on the Shubin mining facility in Squadron 42, because they look kind of similar in dimension. Also, that totally looks like an FPS game multiplayer site. Capture the building kind of thing. Did I buy a spirit? I actually, here's what I did. So I had a Cutlass Black that I was going to do a giveaway for, but I also have another Cutlass Black that was gifted to me for a giveaway. So instead of giving them both away, I upgraded the Cutlass Black that I already had to a spirit that cost me like 10 bucks. And then once the spirit comes out, I'm probably going to give that away. That way I can test it out in the PTU and stuff and get video footage of it and then just give it away when it goes live. Win-win. Cost me 10 bucks and it's like probably a much more valuable giveaway than the Cutlass would have been. Now you're confused. You know this game is like 700, like a million, worth like 700. What if saying like, how can I hold this game, but he can hold Elite Dangerous? It doesn't make sense. It's a very different kind of game from Elite Dangerous. Elite Dangerous is a very spaceship-focused game that is split into a lot of different segments that get loaded in and out. Whereas this game is something that they try to do all in one space, loading and streaming with like some weird loading techniques that might not be as efficient on consoles. Honestly, that's getting into territory I don't quite know. But the scale of the game is a little bit different because of the detail and the way it's experienced. The FPS nature of this game makes it a little bit more difficult to do on consoles. And Witch Space has a good point. Elite Dangerous also is no longer working on consoles. So it is becoming increasingly apparent that it's harder to do these kinds of games on console, or at least over different types of machines. Did I see that the new cards-based UI system they had in the white box and inside Star Citizen a while ago? Yeah. That was pretty cool. So this was the underground. See, how long do we have? About 10 minutes. This was the underground, and it's a new space for people to play in. Obviously not very heavy on the gameplay stuff. It didn't tell us much about what specifically was coming to the game in those areas, so much as just like, here's what the areas look like. In the interest of time, I don't even know what the next panel was, but how about we do a look at the new version of Lorville and then call it a day. And then at the next stream, we can look at the Need for Speed, Power Play, and the new ships, because those are going to be that's going to be a lot. We're going to do a lot of talking about those. Did I notice that the underground had building blocks UI? I did not notice that. Let's check this out. The new version of Lorville, which is wildly outdated.
Hello, my name's Ian Leyland and I'm the art director for Star Citizen, and today we're going to talk about an internal initiative called Lorville 2.0.
The link for the official Star Citizen Discord? I don't think they have one. I think the closest you're going to get is the Star Citizen subreddit Discord.
Specifically the Lorville Cityscape, it was probably the first major landing zone we'd ever had to do. It was the first time we put a landing zone on a planet, and we had the player fly there with minimal restrictions, although it did have that really big no-fly zone.
Yeah,
but
it
when
did.
we did subsequent landing zones, we built up a bit more of a knowledge base and experience base about
Yo, what's up, crew? Thanks for the hydration reminder.
Area 18, New Babbage, Orison, we all developed more techniques, and we always wanted to go back internally and put that knowledge back into Lorville. To start us off, I'll throw it over to Eric, our principal concept artist, and he can show you some more.
Hi, my name is Eric Gagnon. I'm a principal concept artist for Star Citizen and Turbulent in Montreal, and I'm here to talking about the Lorville 2.0.
When can you marry NPCs? I want romance, dang it!
When I
That's
started
a true
to
update.
work on the concept, initially what I did is to create a variety of sketches, black and white sketches of a different approach of that city.
Yo, this looks like Starfield City. Like the way that they layered the walls and stuff. If you go and you look at Starfield concept art, it actually kind of looks like that. Because they build their cities on like giant walls. So if you look at like this kind of stuff, kind of similar. Which I mean, I'm not mad. More sci-fi, the better.
Sketches, black and white sketches of a different approach of that city. We create a side panel of a silhouette of the building. Mainly the reason we need to work on that is for mainly gameplay issues, because we would like to make a gameplay in the interior buildings, and we need to create a bigger city to let the player have a fun experience to flying through that. Yeah, so after the sketching process and get some...
This is like the space station panel from last year, honestly. This part was not very interesting, but I'm just listening through it to make sure we didn't miss any info.
Approval, I need to know very well the footprint of that city. We build a city from a human scale.
So they have... I think these are the neighborhoods they've talked about that they're building out, but interestingly, they all say industrial. I wonder if any of these will end up being residential and whether we'll even have to travel out to them or if we'll just spend all our time in the CBD.
You know, we have nothing in that city. They build in a gray zone. So everything is built from that unit, and it's built from the unit of the CBD. So this is mainly the two main units I used to build a city. So we have a kind of a proportion in terms of land.
Oh yeah, I'm sticking away from the Squadron spoilers.
So this is why I used a 3D basis to working on that. So I need to make sure that the ratio of everything fits well to approach closely as possible. So mainly the goal is not to dig right away on the details, but it's to stay on the big picture and to see...
Dang, this city looks dope. I love the layering of it. I hope the clouds sit lower.
The skyline makes sense. So this is a good challenge to play with that, and I think I did a nice job on that, because at the end...
The whole script was leaked from Squadron 42. I think that's what Astropub's usually referring to. It's like back like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But I mean, yeah, obviously there's no way of knowing if it's still the same or anything like that. But there was a pretty big ass drop of the script from the game.
What the feeling we have, it's like a real city. So I use my
socializing in bed.
2D background in concept art.
That just means opening your Moby glass.
Make the best as possible concept art with all the techniques inside.
Would it just be worse to go bigger with the city? They probably have an overall budget they can use for the city, and it's the same across the board. So like, this is probably just being brought up to the same standards as like New Babbage or Orison in terms of load, but also they're probably getting better too at making it efficient at rendering and loading in.
Saying, well, okay, now we are at Lorville 2.0 and we're ready to moving on that.
Thanks, Eric. There's some beautiful image there, and we had a lot of fun internally developing that cityscape. Now, we're not just in concept development. We've actually just passed our white box milestone internally, so we're going to jump over to Max, and he's going to show you where we're at.
Bonjour, mon nom est Maxime Guindon. Je suis chef environnement artiste sur le projet Star Citizen. Mon mandat en ce moment est Lorville 2.0. Premièrement, je voudrais dire bonjour à la communauté francophone de Star Citizen, à toute la communauté en fait. Ce que vous faites, ce que vous partagez m'inspire énormément dans mon travail. From the concepts done.
Okay, so in the August monthly report, this is 2 months ago, it looks like they had They had the cityscape rework in the gray box phase. They were adding landing pads and connecting the various neighborhoods together. I don't remember if they said anything in September, but that was already 2 months ago. That's where they were with the Lorville rework. So like this is very well underway, as he said in the video. This isn't like the underground facilities.
It's time to start it in engine.
How do I think the interior generation will work? I don't know. I was really hoping that they were going to show that here. Some kind of update to what they did at Orison, I imagine. But
much bigger than the initial Lorville city, up to something that matches the ambition. For instance, we are...
Rough Galaxy, in the race, I made it all the way down the first leg of the race, and then my guy just like dropped dead out of the car. It didn't even explode. Nothing happened. I just fell dead. It was very annoying. Hey Ranger, how you doing? This panel missed a big opportunity to mention building residential areas for future player habs. That tells you planet-side purchasable player habs are very far away. Yeah, I would say not until they have personal habs on even the progress tracker are they thinking about that. But I'm guessing because they did talk about doing that to the cities, building out more residential areas, it must be in here somewhere, right? After the Squadron 42 footage, you think that Starfield should be worried because they don't look as pretty anymore, and Squadron 42 doesn't even have finished graphics. Two different types of games, though. I don't think they'll cannibalize each other very much. I think people will be interested in both, but ultimately, Starfield's going to be a much better RPG. Squadron will be a much better, linear story kind of cinematic experience. You wouldn't be surprised if the interiors don't change that much. I don't care if they change, I just want them. We don't have interiors anywhere but in Orison. It'd be nice to see them start being applied to the other cities soon. This looks freaking great though. The thick fog really needs to stick around. The fact that it occludes some of the city from where you're looking. I hope I can be in a skyscraper and not see the other side of the city. I think that adds a lot of detail and atmosphere to the kind of city Lorville is.
19 area. We are keeping the CBD. We're keeping the spaceport, and we're building upon this and just extending the city. We've done several tests with the transit system, the rails, and we try to extend it out a bit. We're keeping the same number of gates, but we're moving them out. And so throughout these tests, we've built the city.
You can definitely tell there are buildings here that are built for interiors and landing pads, and then there are buildings here that are just built to be there. I don't think we'll ever be interacting with these small ones. The releases will be separated by several years. What are you talking about? Several years? I think that Squadron and Starfield will probably release within like 2 years of each other. If we're expecting Starfield next year, Squadron in the next 3 years, I think that's reasonable. If personal habs are in and you crash at a different city overnight, do you have to pay for the stay at the hotel there? Yeah, boy, you got to pay to leave your ship at the spaceport, dog. Pay your taxes. Over here thinking you could stay on a fucking city for free. You know what they say to that?
And for those reasons, I'm out.
You're out. None of that. Better pay to stay, buddy. It is awesome that they changed the game to adapt to its current state, lowering speed as real roads are far away on the roadmap. Are they? We were just looking at that. I actually didn't really pay much attention. Where are the roads, wow. CIG? I guess they probably don't need them anytime soon.
There he is!
I just did the engineering work this last year. Yeah, I guess we don't really know what's going to go on with roads for now. A rewatch nice. I was just commenting on your chat with Morph about the flight changes and logical reason for losing shields. A key point you may have missed. I would love for that. We'll be talking about that on Wednesday. We won't get to that panel today, but make sure to be around for the Wednesday stream. We'll talk in depth on that. Hope for some days, small areas where we get for some missions to the ground and see how life looks there. Be nice to have intra-city missions, I mean. Oh yeah, Gamers Cafe. We heard about Aaron's little slip up there. We were making jokes about him having drinks at during CitizenCon because of that. And yeah, it's not a promise. It's just a random line. I'm not going to take that to mean anything.
As just placeholder, white box, very primitive to have this layout, this fast iteration of the whole city done, and then that we could see it and get feedback on it. So it will feel more like a believable city. We hope it to be fun to
God,
fly
this
around.
looks so good.
And like
the lighting looks so much better. I like that they brought back that orange glow that they originally had in the R-Corp, the early R-Corp version. It's good to see it making a comeback somewhere.
In it, we're building arches, bridges,
I don't have RTX technology.
like underpasses, and it makes it interesting to be able to fly around. We see the
Take away the no-fly zones.
community of players. They're doing like emergent gameplay of races, and that inspires us. And then the way that we're building the city. We are starting now the gray box. We have like Montreal's tools teams now that are working on like Houdini tools, and we're chatting with them, see what we could use.
I could see 2 years being realistic.
Tools. There will be several areas of like a higher level of detail, especially around landing pads on rooftops and lookout areas.
Wait, hold on. I can buy an RTX kidney? Is that what you're telling me, Tiger? Real-time ray tracing inside of my kidney systems?
To land, these will eventually connect to the interior.
I'm just going to expect 5 years for Squadron.
That will be built later. And that
And then
sense, Lorville will
be surprised.
ready for those interiors.
I hope.
We started as a team of 2 artists working on Lorville, and now we're 5. And we could even be like more soon. Each artist has slightly different skill sets, and we complete each other. They bring ideas. I let them bring ideas to the table on how to advance what we're doing, make it kick-ass. So that's really important. So I hope you'll like what you see, and we can't wait to show you more.
I just want to be able to land on buildings and stay there.
On this
I want to land on top of a building and take an elevator down to my hab.
Because it's gonna make such a huge difference.
Thanks, Max. That's looking great. And hopefully you guys can kind of see, even in a white boxing format, we're seeing really good scale reads and understanding about how we can make the cityscape of Lowville probably one of our best yet. And we'll be showing more soon. Thanks for letting us showcase
What does
that for you
soon
today.
mean?
Enjoy.
What does soon mean? I honestly think we'll probably see it next quarter.
For the rest of the show.
At least in a sprint report. Because this is pretty far along. I mean, look at this. Freaking look at that. Holy crap. Like the expansion, we're literally, this is the city limit right here at the bottom of the screen. And then it's just demolished. Like there is so much more city now. Holy crap. And these buildings are like 3 times as high. It's interesting that they didn't scale up the Hurston Dynamics building. I wonder what the thinking was behind that. They're just cool with it being a little bit less obtrusive. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting they call this gray box with like a lot of the lighting effects going on, but I'm guessing it looks like they don't have the new room shaders on the buildings. Maybe they do, I can't really tell. And it looks like these smaller buildings still are lacking a lot of detail. Okay, this is crazy. So the most interesting part of this is like, if you look at where all the mountains are coming into the city, you can tell that they created this flat area for the city where the mountains end. And if you look at all this, especially over on this side, watch it how much the city expands. It's absurd. Look at how much further out this stuff comes than before. Now, the actual residential area isn't actually that much bigger, and it looks like this stuff is what's all in gray box still. Kind of looks gray. But like, watch this side. Just like way out here. And originally it was all the way over here. Huge. Definitely, yeah, that's some unfinished buildings there. And they're specifically not showing us the areas that we might be playing in now. They don't show any of the actual on the ground changes yet, because I don't think it's just the outlooks from the outside and stuff. I think there's going to be a lot of new places to explore. Maybe not new, but expanded, slightly changed. God, I love that. It's beautiful. It's pretty. But that's about it, folks. We got through, I think, 3 or 4 of the panels today. This is the next one we'll be starting with on Monday, the need for multiple speeds. This is a heavy gameplay conversation, and we'll be talking a lot about opinion in this one for sure. But I'm looking forward to it because I haven't really gotten a second chance to watch it, and I think it's going to be a very divisive part of the game now. Something that they kind of need to do, but are they doing it in the right way? I don't know. We'll decide together. Anyways, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you joining me for this little walkthrough, this look over of CitizenCon. This section that we just watched wasn't necessarily the most interesting section, but it had some good stuff to get. I think we got some decent information from it, and we were able to kind of set our expectations based on what they're doing and how they're talking. I think 4.0 is further away than they estimated early last year, and will probably be closer to the end of next year. And I think that a lot of these gameplay additions and locations won't be coming in 4.0, even though they say Journey to 4.0. Really bad idea on their part, but yeah. Sorry for irritating me earlier. I don't think you were irritating me. I don't know. It's all good. We get through a stream. I don't really get mad at people too much. I might sound like it, but don't worry, you're good. Thanks for just being active. Like, if we're having a good conversation, we're having a good conversation. I appreciate everybody who does talk in chat. I also appreciate you lurkers. I know you're getting a lot out of this, and thank you just for being here and watching. It means a lot. But with that being said, folks, I'm gonna pass you on to somebody special. Let's see. Let's see. Twitch.tv/StarCitizen. I don't think that works that way. No, it just takes me to their own page. You don't think 4.0 will be in at least until second quarter of 2024? Holy crap. That's wow. Well, that would be a while out. We'll see. Let's see. You see 4.0 around the end of next year. I'm hoping for the end of next year. I'm not going to set my sights on it, but I do hope for it. You think these are a lot older previews of this stuff? There was a preview of Traversal later that showed the underground facilities further along. I think what they showed in that was the Squadron 42 location. But I do agree with you. I think these are earlier than we're seeing them. These were probably recorded back in early September. time-ish, just because he was talking about them getting through the white box phase when they've already reported that they're into the gray box phase. So I'm guessing some of these are definitely like a month, maybe a month and a half old. Not really much, but a difference. All right, I'm gonna drop y'all with HC Vertigo today. It's been a little while since we sent him a raid. Go say what's up. Have a good time. Wish him the best, the prettiest, the wonderfulest, and hopefully no 30Ks or crashes or ruinings of the gameplays. Folks, once again, one last time, thank you all for being here. I always have a joy with these streams where we just get to talk about the game. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy hearing your thoughts, debating with you guys, and sharing my own opinions. So I appreciate you. Have a good day, everybody. I'll see you on Wednesday.